What is going on, everybody? We are back. Tornado Tag. Myself, ABJ, BP Burke, and Lilly on the call for tonight's action. We are very excited to bring you our first of 3 episodes. We are going into this heated political debate, the system tonight with really.
This is the only
debate that matters
tonight.
Yeah.
Isn't the other debate tonight too?
There is no debate tonight. There's
no
debate tonight. We are not having a debate tonight.
Well, listen.
Here's how what it really comes down to is I'm very happy to be on the show, invited in to be the new member on the show about learning wrestling and all that entails. But truthfully, there's always this huge debate of, are you team Bret or are you team Sean? And I don't know anything about either of these freaking people, so I need a little bit of a lesson. So I think that we should keep the debate for a few weeks down the road.
Right.
And I want to get like a deep dive into each of these candidates before.
The first thing you need to know about Bret Hart is he's a true artist. A true artist.
Con artist?
Every wrestler's a con
artist.
Yeah, they're all con artists till some debate. That is 100% factual. But we do have one of our things did not just load. Let's see if that works now. So we do have some new merchandise that will be dropping tonight after this show. So if you are Team Bret, you can support Team Bret and his VP BP Burke, because that's what's going to happen in real life. And you can get your brand new Hitman Burke 2024 Tornado Tag t-shirts. You can get your Showstopper ABJ 2024 shirt. That will be next week's episode, Shawn Michaels. Or if you're like, I don't really know who BP or ABJ are, but I like this style of shirt, we made one for you as well. You can get the Hitman Foundation 2024 or the Showstopper Click 2024. I actually wanted Showstopper Degenerates, but Lilly learned about the Click in a recent documentary.
You asked me for Click. I wrote it down on the whiteboard.
And she rathered Click, so I'm not arguing it. And I'm stealing a punchline. Actually, I'll let Lilly drop her punchline.
Yeah, because you didn't even do it right, you jerk.
If you don't care about politics at all, and you're like, whatever,
pull it up, and I'll do the punchline.
You can get this shirt until we get sued.
The punch line, get it? Orange Punch, haha, the only orange guy that deserves your vote. Orange Cassidy, 2024.
There it is. All right, so we got 3 political shirts, and one of them is definitely going to get us fired, or at least cease and desist. But we'll
go ahead, waste your vote. Vote third party.
Yeah. That is very
nice.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
That's great. But
for the record, I had my own shirt, but I don't think you have that saved on there.
No.
It's saved on the computer. I don't think it's
your own shirt.
Brought it up. Yeah, I made one.
Oh, I do see that. I'll put it. You want that one up? You want that one uploaded as well?
I haven't put the outline on it yet, but yeah, that's
so Lilly,
roughly what it'll look like.
This is the first time I've seen this, so this is hers.
There you go.
Super cool. I like it. Yeah. So when you talk politics in your household, and one side's the other, and things get ugly. Well, we have the same here at the Tornado Tag Podcast. There's 2 polarizing people in the business, and that's definitely if you're a Team Bret guy or you're a Team Sean guy, and everyone and their brother knows essentially about these 2, but maybe some newer wrestling fans don't. We cater to this podcast to wrestling fans of all spectrums, brand new wrestling fans, old school wrestling fans, people who picked up at one generation and maybe missed another. We try to do a broad scope of giving you some insight of all generations. And I gotta say, I'm very proud of us, BP, and very proud of working with you, because you are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this world of professional wrestling. And people are going crazy over some of the revelations that have been talked about on this Netflix documentary. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be like, but we have literally said every single thing that has been in that documentary on this podcast in the last 6 years.
Yeah, it's and that I don't know why I was expecting Vince to have some kind of candor in that thing, but it's obviously he's going to be cagey as hell, and it was like it's like, okay, but the only thing that was interesting for me, that it was a really interesting insight into the dynamic between him and Shane. That was the part for me that was kind of
But there's
not
still a whole nother gap they didn't talk about where he fired Shane again.
well. That was that's true. Yeah, they did send him home after that Royal Rumble. Well, he did come back and then he tore out. He blew his quad out.
Yeah.
In true McMahon fashion, he blew his quad.
And then sailed off to join the competition, maybe. Hope and
Who
soon.
knows? Who knows? That would
It's
be
looking very possible.
I think sometimes people just like to stir the pot a little bit, and it is this unique situation where no member of the McMahon family has an official role in WWE right now. The closest they have is, married in Triple H.
Yeah, that is pretty wild how everything played out in that aspect.
That and Bruce Pritchard, who has his head up Vince's ass and is working for the company. So there's a little bit there too.
I think this documentary just reaffirms how much Bruce Pritchard fucking annoys me. Like he's someone who knows where all the bodies are buried. We all know that he knows. Thank you. I had a stroke saying that. But he'll give you the little wink and the and then just lie right to your face, lie directly to your face about what he knows, or saying that it wasn't real, and you're like, Bruce, come on, you're gonna tell us all this stuff right here was 100% factual and this just snuck through the cracks? Get out of here. Like you're gonna tell us that sometimes the best stories in wrestling are the ones that are right in front of your face, and then you're gonna put it right in front of our face and be like,
that's not real.
I think you're confusing my character with me. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Oh man.
Like, I don't think we should be insulting the intelligence of our audience, but we're gonna insult the intelligence of our audience as much as possible.
That is professional wrestling in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. But I guess Vince pisses me off the way WWE pisses me off the way it does it more than anyone else, though.
I did enjoy Raw last night, though. Raw was very good.
I did not see it. I was actually doing an interview last night around the same time as Raw. You'll actually enjoy this one. This is from another one of your neck of the woods. AXW superstar just interviewed David Goldie.
All right.
Kid is a megastar.
Came within an eyelash of winning that AXW heavyweight title.
Yeah, I feel like that's still in his future at some point.
There's a lot in that kid's future. There's a lot.
Yeah, I told him I wanted to get this interview now because if I don't get it soon, he's going to be unobtainable.
Yeah.
So anything else news-wise wrestling before we jump into our topic?
And they did mention this on Raw very tastefully. Hall of Famer Pete Rose. Obviously, that was a marketing gimmick, but Hall of Famer Pete Rose did pass away yesterday. So the whole idea with that was, if you don't know baseball, Pete Rose is the all-time hits leader in professional Major League Baseball. More hits than any other player ever. I think now they say that if you took Ichiro's numbers in Japan and in Major League Baseball, it would be ahead of Pete Rose. But Pete Rose is the all-time hit king. Legendary player for the Cincinnati Reds. Had a few years with the Phillies as well. Was part of their team that won the World Series in 1980. And then when he was managing the Cincinnati Reds a bit later in the 80s, very controversially, was found to have bet on baseball and was banned for life from baseball. Not able to go in the Hall of Fame to his dying day. Was not in the Hall of Fame. And It's not even a lifetime ban. It's an eternal ban. Like Shoeless Joe Jackson, who was part of the World Series scandal in 1919. He's dead and he's still not in the Hall of Fame. So what WWE did is they had Pete Rose come into Boston as for WrestleMania 14 as a guest ring announcer, and he healed up on the Boston crowd. This is before the curse was broken. He's talking about, I left tickets for Bill Buckner, and he dropped them between his legs and stuff like that. And he's just completely healing up on Boston. And then next year, WrestleMania 15's in Philly, and they had a whole thing where like Kane would always go after Pete Rose. He tombstoned him at WrestleMania 14, and then he attacks Kane as the San Diego Chicken. Yeah, there you go. Pete Rose was he was the guy that put the Phillies over the top. They had a great core. They were a laughing stock, and they were starting to get there. They had Mike Schmidt, they had Steve Carlton, they had a lot of great players, but Pete Rose is the guy that put them over the top.
He's like RJ and Daniels.
Yeah, except it actually happened, and it's not speculation, although it's looking good for you. It is looking good for you. It's looking very good for you. But yeah, it's not overreacting to say that 4 games into a guy's career. But
Listen, I haven't seen our team put up 42 points in a very long time.
you have every reason to be excited about that kid. That kid's impressive.
Yeah.
So with Pete Rose, the whole thing was he was never able to go into the Baseball Hall of Fame. When WWE revived their Hall of Fame in 2004, they're like, we should put Pete Rose in there. It's a publicity stunt, and it worked. But he did have some really fun moments there. I guess otherwise in news tonight, in about less than 2 hours now, it's the first NXT on CW. So they loaded up that show. I believe they're doing Ethan Page and Trick Williams. I know they're doing.
I'm gonna put it on here. We should be done before it goes, just in case it's not. But we are gonna lead into NXT. We're gonna try our best to end before NXT. So
I don't think we're going 2 hours. I don't think we're going 2 hours.
Yeah.
Julia and Roxanne Lopez. Sorry, Lily. Julia and Roxanne Lopez tonight. Go for it.
I was just gonna say, there's been a lot of deaths, celebrity deaths lately. The guy who played Oogie Boogie died. The voice actor for Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas died this morning.
And Mutombo.
Died yesterday. Dame Maggie Smith passed away over the weekend.
Yeah.
John Amos, who was the star of Good Times, he passed away.
James Earl Jones, I still haven't gotten over it. It's just like since that happened, it was like boom, 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 boom. Here's another and another and another.
The crazy thing about John Amos is he apparently died in August, and it just came out now.
Oh, geez.
One of the guys.
Oh, really?
One of the guys from American Pickers died.
Yeah, but Hulk Hogan still breathing,
still alive.
Jesus.
And that no good Bill Goldberg.
And freaking Carol Baskin.
Yo, I said I'm not hating on Bret, and I'm not. But when I heard him say in that documentary that I think they killed Owen to get back at me, I almost threw something at my TV.
He walked it back.
Yo, I was like, this guy will find a way to make anything about himself. I literally was like, I can't. I'm in the chat like, you gotta be effing kidding me. And then he was like, I don't mean that. I took it back. Like, I was just really upset. I was just like, all right, Bret. But Jesus Christ.
The crazy thing about that is he was actually supposed to be shortly after that on the Tonight Show. And they canceled the thing because that was around the time, if I'm not mistaken, that was around the time that Jay Leno was getting involved with WCW and actually wrestled for WCW.
Yeah. All right. Anything else news-wise we want to cover?
Nothing I can think of. I don't think there was anything super monumental at Raw, except for they did the whole Big Show Brock Lesnar breaking the ring spot. Seth Rollins is back.
Yeah, I heard he came back. I didn't get to see that yet, though. But I have completely been checked out of content because I've been just really grinding this month, almost every day, recording content to build a big backlog. I'm happy to say we're not done recording. We still have to do more episodes of Tornado Tag. Tornado Tag will be every Tuesday, but we may sneak in some bonus content on Fridays. I know all the 5 questions with ABJ drop on Fridays, but every now and then you may see an episode drop here and there. And there's some episodes that are on the docket that may bump back another week. So we do have the debut of Truth Behind Illusion dropping on Halloween. We're going to drop it on Halloween, which is really exciting. The brand new debut, the return of Banging Beers happens, I believe, next week. On Monday? Oh, on Monday, Banging Beers returns, which I'm super excited for. I love the new format. It is still open for people to come join me. I will be doing some Pilgaroo episodes, which you'll most likely see BP Burke on in the near future because they changed their beers so much. You're going to see a lot of Pilgaroo love on Banging Beers. Not Cool in High School is going to return this month. We're going to do a Beetlejuice episode. So that's coming. Some of them will be live. Some of them won't be live. And then I still got to get back with Sonny DeFarge to finish our Terminator. I got to get back with Kim Rose to do horror movie villains, horror movie stuff. Congratulations to her on her recent engagement.
Yes.
I'm doing another horror movie franchise review with a wrestler. So that's exciting. So I'm going to sit down for at least 8 movies and do the entire Halloween franchise with Kit Raff.
All right.
Yeah.
There's only 8 of them? There's got to be more than 8 of them.
There's only 8 that we care about currently.
There's 6 Halloween movies. Then there's 2 Rob Zombies and then 3 post one, so it might be more than 8. Yeah.
But also we're going to be doing a little bit of like
Wait.
maybe like more short form. We're going to be doing some like snack reviews and things
Yeah.
like that as well, and
Yeah.
maybe some gaming content.
Yeah, gaming's coming back. So once I get things situated, so the channel's really going to be kicking off with a lot of cool content, and I have a nice backlog that I can do that. But also, it gives me more time to then focus on watching wrestling and getting back into wrestling weekly. And I think that's really going to kick off for us, at least, when we go and hang out with our boy Joel Ruda this weekend and watch Bad Blood. So we're going to go and film some content with Ruda. Also, Blazing Buds is coming soon, and I found a really fun way to do that. I'm still going to do interviews with that too, because I still have an interview for that episode that I want to do. We're still going to talk about reviewing the products, but it's not so much about the review, it's just what we're trying and what we like. But we have a fun.
I think we should name it. What kind of dumb shit is this?
No, I still like Blazing Buds, and the logo's done. But Blazing Buds is going to be very like current news. But we're going to be talking about current news a little high. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, a little high.
Under the influence.
I think that's the only reasonable way you can watch current news today.
It's hard to take in sober. It really is.
So we're going to be talking about current pop culture, and Blazing Bud's going to be a mix of little everything. It's going to be possibly wrestling talk. There's no general topic of what Blazing Buds can be, but one of the only stipulations is you just gotta spark up a little bit with us to talk. But yeah, we're pumped. It's gonna be pumped. It's gonna be, and that might be a weekly show. Banging Beers will probably be like once or twice a month. Are you frozen or just that still? Oh no, she's just that still. I was like, well, how am I moving?
I'm
but
just really good like that.
Yeah, Lily was like a fucking one of those dogs that just point and don't move. It was like
a German pointer.
It's perfect.
One of these times we both have to freeze just to freak you out.
Yeah, she did it, and I was like, what the fuck? Good. Yeah, but we have a lot of stuff coming. We're really excited. So without any further ado, let's get into our topic and let's talk about, and I'll do the monikers.
All of them?
Let's start with the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Let's talk about the excellence of Executioner. Let's talk about what else do we got, PP? Am I missing anything?
How about the Hitman?
Come on, my dude.
That was silly. The Hitman, the leader, I would say, of the Hart Foundation, and probably the only guy who was who beat up Vince McMahon at one point in time. Hit him.
Well, maybe nails. Maybe nails. They didn't talk about
nails,
that.
yeah.
That's what they didn't talk about in the documentary.
They still left a lot out. Oh
yeah.
But yeah, so let's dive into it. BP, take us on the history. Free will here. Just no notes. Just
Meanwhile, memory. I am writing notes.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes so that I can learn everything. I'm keeping tabs.
One of these days, our listeners are going to share this stream out and tell this amongst their friends and be like, yo, these guys do a fantastic job. And we're going to get that word of mouth. I think it's slowly coming. We're getting there. I think we're obviously we're earning respect amongst our peers because now all three of us are bookers in this room. Lily's on the committee as well, on the booking committee of New Era with me, because they like the dynamic of, well, how does this make sense to someone who doesn't understand wrestling? If that makes sense.
From a fan perspective of like, does that make sense?
So we book and then she watches it and then is like, oh, that was cool. Or, hey, I didn't understand that. You know what I mean?
Who were there and why did they even come in here?
So that's kind of her input.
Saying the vice president of common sense. The vice president of common sense is always there.
Yeah, that's basically all I'm good for.
Every organization should have one. They really should. Not just wrestling either.
Yeah. It's good to have that new fresh eyes or someone who's very new to the business to kind of step back and be like, why? You know what I mean? And if someone's asking that question, you're like, we got to readjust, and that's smart to do. And I think that's really cool that they put Lily on the booking committee for that reason. So she's doing a great job. New shows are coming up. We'll plug all that towards the end, but let's get into Bret Hart.
So you got to talk Bret Hart. You got to talk Calgary, Alberta, Canada. He is so synonymous with Calgary, Alberta, Canada that the name of the minor league hockey franchise there is the Calgary Hitmen.
Yes.
I didn't even know they had I guess I should have known they had like a minor. I just knew the Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I guess I should. Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you ever seen, sorry, real quick, BP, if you ever seen recently, he's done it probably more than once though. But have you ever seen Edge's gear where he has a hockey mask?
Yeah.
That's
And
the
he
Calgary.
usually wears the whole
Mhm.
hockey like jersey.
So that's a Calgary Hitman jersey, and the mask is shaped and looks like Bret, but it's a hockey mask.
See, this is me learning, guys.
Yeah.
The
Okay, go on.
original when the team originally formed in the 90s, Bret was part of the ownership group, but he did sell his interest in the team a long time ago. And back then their colors were pink and black. They had a whole Bret Hart motif going, and a little bit. And now they're not. But yeah, I believe they're in the Western Hockey League. It's a WHL. It's one of the there's the OHL, the WHL, and the I forget the Quebec one. It's like QM something HL.
Mhm.
But the Hitmen, in fact, one of the Flyers, Travis Sanheim, played for the Calgary Hitmen. But so the Hart family is synonymous with Calgary, not just Bret. It starts with his father, Stu Hart, who is one of the legendary tough guys, one of the legendary, whatever you want to call him, shooter, hooker. He was the real deal. And he has such a reputation as not just a great wrestler, but a great promoter, a great wrestling trainer, and the patriarch of the Hart dynasty. And one of the crazy things is that Helen Hart, his wife, who was from Long Island, New York, Stu Hart was not the first wrestler / wrestling promoter she knew. She knew a guy named Paul Bosch, who was also from New York, wound up promoting the Houston territory. He was originally, it's funny, we just dragged him through the mud for 5 minutes, but he was originally Bruce Pritchard's mentor. And Paul Bosch was kind of the intermediary between Stu and Helen, but they literally had a dozen kids, and a lot of them became wrestlers or married wrestlers. Obviously, you had Bret, Owen, Bruce, Keith, Ross, Smith Hart, who was, I believe, the oldest, but Bret was one of the older ones. And from a very young age was in the art, was always very artistic, but it was fairly early on that he knew he was going to be in wrestling because that was the family business. He was one of those
Bret is
guys.
a fantastic artist, like
Yeah.
really good cartoonist. He's if I can find a Bret original print, like I'm sure there are probably some online. He's very good. Another really good artist, Jerry the King Lawler, is a good cartoonist. Yeah.
They're both they have similar styles too. It's like a very cartoony, like the old Saturday morning newspaper funnies cartoon type style of drawing. But Bret winds up gravitating to wrestling and does what a lot of the kids of wrestlers did, especially those old territory days. You started selling the programs, you started putting the ring together, taking the jackets to the back. But very early on, he makes his debut in 1978, and he quickly becomes one of the top guys in Stampede. And this is where he runs into somebody that he's going to have a lot of history with fairly early in his career, the Dynamite Kid. So now you have the Dynamite Kid. The guy who's using the name now, I believe, is the original Dynamite Kid's nephew, I want to say. And the original Dynamite Kid is another guy who is up there among the great technicians. It's a name that doesn't really get spoken about a lot until that Vince documentary, but Dynamite Kid has drawn a lot of comparisons to Chris Benoit. Just a very intense style, undersized, but tenacious. And him and Bret Hart tore the house down in the Stampede Wrestling territory, which was the
Dynamite Kid. Was he trained by Stu at all, or did he work in the dungeon?
He may have. I think everybody got work in the dungeon, but he may have. I'm gonna imagine he originally learned in the UK and then came over and worked there. But a lot of people passed through Stampede. A lot of people. They typically did what a lot of companies would do then, especially companies outside. Well, even in the United States, a lot of your heels were foreign. Like if you're in the United States, your heel might be the Sheik or the Iron Sheik, or either Sheik, or it might be, if you're going back to Fritz von Erich's days, the reason Jack Atkinson became Fritz von Erich was because he was pretty much playing a Nazi, because it was shortly after World War II. And they would do that in Stampede. They had one of their tag teams was literally called the Viet Cong Express. So they were kind of doing the same thing, and it was all these out of towners going up against the Hart boys. This guy from England, the Dynamite Kid, going up against Bret Hart, and this is where the ladder match comes from. Or at least
real quick, just to kind of give Lily a little more insight. The dungeon that we're talking about is essentially Stu Hart's training facility.
Yes.
Every Hart kid,
Training
every
facility.
it was the basement of their house.
Yeah.
And there's legendary stories of like Natalia saying like, I'm upstairs eating breakfast with my aunt or with Helen and the family, and the basement is just grown men screaming and crying all day long, because he had that old school mentality is you don't know how to sell if you don't know how it hurts.
Right.
And if somebody in this business back in the day ever tries to take advantage of you, you know how to defend yourself. So he was teaching you how to really fight. Like, I know right now he's not the greatest name in wrestling to talk about, but I watched Davey Richards do a seminar at PPW, and it was masterful. Because he's like, here's how to put a knee bar in, and here's how to make it look really good. And no matter what I do, if I wrench or pull or anything, it looks amazing, but there's no leverage and this isn't going to hurt. But if I do this and I put my thumb here and I move you just a hair and now I move, and the kid's like, ah! And he's like, now I can break your knee. So if you're ever in a situation where someone doesn't want to play ball, here's how to defend yourself. And that's kind of how the dungeon, that's kind of how a bad Billy Walker and a Johnny Rodz trains. Like, you learn how to make it hurt in case you have to.
That's how everybody trained back then. And literally the first or second day in training, Hiro Matsuda broke Hulk Hogan's leg. Legit broke Hulk Hogan's leg. Yeah. And so Stu kind of he was one of those guys, because he was the real deal. He was as real as it got. And
if you came out of the dungeon, you knew you were a badass.
And especially those guys who were kind of athletes or bodybuilders who kind of poo-pooed wrestling. Hey, come on down to the dungeon. I'll show you a few things.
Which is why I love, just going to the independent side real quick. This is why I absolutely love Abs, because you look at Abs and you're like, what a nice guy. Like, what a softie. And you're like, wait, who trained you? You're like, oh, please keep this guy nice, because he has stuff in here that he could lose it real quick.
and then you look at somebody like Masha Slamovich, you're like, oh yeah, checks out.
That checks 100% checks out. Yeah.
So Stu, he had his sugar holds. He would always, which is a hold that was like an inescapable hold that you could just use to, like, kind of, for lack of a better term, torture people. And yeah, it was not uncommon to hear screams of pain coming from the basement of the Hart house. And a lot of people did pass through. A lot of people also passed through the Hart Wrestling Academy. And a lot of the reputation comes from later, where Chris Jericho, Lance Storm passed through there. But literally, if you read Chris Jericho's first book, he's like, the only time I saw a member of the Hart family was when, I think he said, like, Keith Hart or Ross Hart, one of the Harts, like, came to collect my money. And it wasn't even in the dungeon. It was in a bowling alley. They trained in a bowling alley. Yeah. So
also very weird family.
The Harts
legendary weird family.
Legendarily eccentric. They had a bear.
You weren't going to smudge any of the competition.
I'm not smudging. That's fact.
That's not a fact. That's an opinion.
No, that is the entire opinion of the wrestling scene.
That's an opinion still, though. I need this in facts.
The Harts are weird. The Harts are factually weird. Yeah. Bret's an eccentric guy, and him and Owen were the normal ones. Him and Owen were Owen was the most normal one, it seemed. Owen just wanted to retire and become a firefighter and raise his kids. So yeah, like they had back in the 70s, especially, it was very in vogue, in the early 80s even, to have wrestling bears. Like, there were a few there was Victor and there were a few other ones. They were literally bears that they would train to wrestle. They would put a muzzle on them, and basically you would, like, squeeze the bear here, and they knew how to do a snapmare and a few other basic things. And when they would bring the bear into Calgary, they just kept the bear at the Hart house, the Hart family home. And they said, like, Stu would put, like, mayonnaise or something on his feet and have the bear lick it off because he thought it kept them clean. He legendarily would use a spatula to clean out his the cat's litter box, and then without washing it, go right back to making breakfast with the spatula. So
that's not weird. That's unsanitary.
Oh yeah,
it's weird.
It's Stu Hart. I almost did a Stu Hart impression there.
Pull out the fucking straight jacket.
I promised myself I wouldn't do a Stu Hart impression, but Stu Hart's not afraid of germs. Stu Hart can't. I'll stretch the germs.
So we were watching old Bret Hart matches on like the best of, like they have a compilation of all of his matches. I fell asleep, but she was watching a lot of it, and I woke up to like him and Bam Bam Bigelow wrestling on Coliseum Video. No, Coliseum Video, when they had all those exclusive matches when it was during his IC run, and I'm just listening to Bobby on commentary. I think it was Bobby, Vince, and Macho Man. Wasn't Bobby's best 3-man booth, but it was still Bobby being Bobby. And she's like, I don't like him. He's too mean and misogynistic. I go, oh.
He's very of his time.
I feel like you shouldn't be surprised either, because like I don't find your misogynistic jokes funny either. Like I get why you say them, but that doesn't mean I find them funny.
Bobby
shouldn't be a surprise.
No,
to you.
no humor over here.
You also have to keep in mind that
no joking. There's in there.
Don't touch me.
You also have to keep in mind that Bobby was a heel, and heels back then had a lot more free reign to kind of push the envelope.
No,
Bobby,
so it starts. The whole thing that got me was when it very first started. When Bret Hart first comes out, it's showing to the camera, right? It's showing all the audience, and it's all these girls, and they're young girls, like freaking 12 and 13-year-olds, and there's Bobby Heenan, woof. And I'm like, what the? So somebody else says, I guess it was Vince, was like, what are you barking at? And he's like, did you see her? And I'm like, what the, bro? Like, she's like 12. What are you talking about?
And then if there was an old woman in the crowd, they mistaken her for Bret's mom.
Helen Hart, yeah. So both Stu and Helen lived to a ripe old age, so those spatulas weren't too bad. They both lasted a while. So Bobby Heenan, it was a different time, and like literally there was an Asian job guy in the 80s, Ricky Ataki. And it's like, if you beat Ricky Ataki, you want to beat him again an hour later. That was one of his jokes.
Yeah.
So
Bobby. Your mic's doing that pop thing. If you're bumping it, be careful.
I might have. Yeah, you got to stay a little more still. I was just grabbing a drink of water here. So
gotta get you a new XLR cable. Remind me.
I have other ones. I can try to swap it out.
I have a shit ton.
I have a list of things for this weekend that we got to take with us to Ruta's house. So I'll just add it to the list.
Add it to the list. Yeah.
So Stampede kind of falls under the same thing as a lot of the rest of professional wrestling, where here comes the WWF, they're taking over everywhere. And they even expand into Canada. It wasn't just limited to the United States. They wanted to take over Canada as well. Mexico, they never really tried. Mexico held strong, but Canada, they take over Maple Leaf Wrestling, which is where Jack Tunney comes into the fold because his father was a promoter there. And they do a deal with Stu to take over Stampede. And it was that if you can't beat him, join him thing. So the around 85, 86, the Stampede Wrestling gets folded into the WWF. Now, and here's something they don't even talk about in that Vince documentary. They said in exchange for shutting down the territory, Vince was going to pay Stu Hart X amount of dollars a year. Didn't pay him. So Stu started running again. And Stu never really fought it because as part of the whole Stampede deal, WWF takes on Dynamite Kid, Davey Boy Smith as the British Bulldogs. The tag team, Davey Boy Smith is later on just would be the British Bulldog, is married to, or was married for a long time, and at this time to Diana Hart, who was Bret's sister.
Yep.
Jim Neidhart, who is Natalia's father, is another one that was married to, I believe, Ellie Hart, another one of the Hart daughters. And so Neidhart, Bulldog, Bulldogs.
I'm just gonna pull up a family tree, I think, because I'm already confused on who's who. There's so many.
So the only actual Hart members in wrestling at this point are Bret, Owen, and the rest are all. Well, I'm saying in WWF, it's in Bret, Owen, Bret, Owen, and then the rest are brother-in-laws.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like Bruce Hart never really had a run there.
I'm just saying, like, so I knew a few of those names, but I didn't realize they were all technically in this. It's still in the family, whether they're cross promoting or not.
They are the Hart Foundation.
Yes, and then so you have the British Bulldogs. They come in as a team, and then Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart come in as a team called the Hart Foundation, managed by Jimmy Hart. No relation.
No relation. Spelled differently.
Yeah, no, it's spelled the same. It's Hart.
Oh, I thought he spelled it differently.
And it's both of their real names. Like, that's Jimmy Hart's real name. That's Bret Hart's real name. Yeah. But they're no relation. Yeah. But
great matchup.
Oh yeah, they were wonderful because especially early on, the knock on Bret is always, and it's not an unfair assessment. He wasn't the best promo guy in the world. In fact, everybody knows of Bret Hart. If you think of Bret Hart, one of the first things you think of are those pink shades,
Yes.
the pink sunglasses, and
The original Pit Vipers.
And he started wearing sunglasses because he was very nervous during promos and his eyes would dart around. So he put sunglasses on and it gave him a little bit of confidence. And he felt a little better about doing promos at that point. So, but Jimmy Hart was their mouthpiece at first. They come in with a fairly strong push. WrestleMania 2 was going to be their first big appearance on a major show. And they are in WrestleMania 2 was very weird. It was at 3 different locations. You had one in New York, you had one in Chicago, and you had one in Los Angeles. And in New York, the main event is Roddy Piper and Mr. T in a boxing match, which was horrible. Mm-hmm. And one of the main events for Chicago is a 20-man battle royal with NFL players and wrestlers. And then in LA, it's Bundy and Hogan in a cage. So the 20-man battle royal actually has Bret Hart in it. And if he wasn't, I think he was the last guy eliminated, if I'm not mistaken. Andre the Giant, if I'm not, I'm pretty sure I have this right, grabs Bret and throws him on a Neidhart. Yeah, before the Pit Vipers, he had just the Silver Aviators.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Hart Foundation are coming in as heels. Also at WrestleMania 2, the British Bulldogs win the tag team titles. So that's going to be our next big tag team feud in the WWF. All these guys that Vince got from Stu when he bought out the territory are going to go against one another. It's going to be the British Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation. But the Hart Foundation and Jimmy Hart have a little bit of an ace up their sleeve as we get a little deeper into 1986, into 1987. And part of what's going on here is Dynamite Kid is in really bad shape. Dynamite Kid, the style he wrestled, everything he did, not just in the WWF, but in Stampede in England, he had a very high impact style, and it was starting to really, really, really wear on him. So
he didn't make a lot of friends backstage either.
That too. that is also true. But his body was really breaking down, and he needed to take some time off, to the point where he could barely stand on the apron for the big match with the British Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation. The Bulldogs putting their tag team titles on the line. But a little bit of a suspicious referee job here. And it turns out that the referee, Danny Davis, was paid off by Jimmy Hart, gets suspended for, as Gorilla Monsoon would always say, life plus 10 years from refereeing because he screws the Bulldogs out of the titles. And it sets it up for the Harts to win the tag team titles. And this carries us into WrestleMania 3, where it's the Bulldogs and Tito Santana taking on the Hart Foundation and Danny Davis, who was also a wrestler. And the Bulldogs, I believe the Harts won that one. So, and it's funny, we'll talk about this, and we'll talk about this next week too. The parallels in Bret and Sean's careers are running.
Dude, he does it all the time, and
he jumps right in front of my face, and it just scares the crap out of me.
And he doesn't care. It's our cat for the audio listeners. Our cat just dive bombs from the ceiling,
from the attic. Just
got to take him on a one-way trip to Springfield, Ohio. Take care of that real quick.
To the Cat Scratch Cafe that Ricky Cleater Jr. likes to eat at.
Yeah. Oh my God. So Ricky Cleater, that character, we don't know who he actually is.
Yeah.
He was billed because he wrestled Stuntcat from Springfield, Ohio. And of course, me being on commentary, I was like, Ricky Cleater he told me backstage he is a master at eating cat.
Yeah.
Well, that's how. Did you hear how I introduced
Very well
him?
versed.
No.
I literally introduced him as fresh from dinner at the Cat Scratch Cafe in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
The feline finisher, blah blah blah. Ricky Cleater Jr.
I love that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He was
Sorry.
billed.
So you do have a lot of parallels between Bret and Shawn Michaels' career, and part of it is they both come in as part of a tag team.
Yep.
And so the Hart Foundation is one of the top level tag teams of the late 80s. In my opinion, them and the Bulldogs are neck and neck until, like, Demolition's a little bit of a different flavor, but Bret and Jim Neidhart have that perfect combination of speed and power. Like, Neidhart is going to be the guy that finishes you off. He can throw you around like you're a toothpick. And Bret is, and this is where you start to get the whole, he's the technical wizard of the team. He's the excellence of execution. He's the hitman. He knows how to take care of, like, he knows that pinpoint strike, and that's where all that stuff comes from. So after the program with the Bulldogs, they have the titles for a little bit. They do drop them. They were originally supposed to drop them to a team called the Can-Am Connection, Rick Martel and Tom Zink. But Tom Zink finds out that Rick Martel's making more money than him, and he doesn't like that. And he asks for more money. They say no, so Tom Zink's out of there. They put Tito Santana with Rick Martel, and it's Strike Force. Strike Force winds up winning the tag team titles from the Hart Foundation. And they're really just transitional champions to get the belts on Demolition, which happens at WrestleMania 4. But WrestleMania 4 is also when we start to see the wheels turning for most of Bret's WWF career, most of Bret's career as a babyface. Up to this point,
because we are doing the Shawn versus Bret debate, we have to say at one point in time too that the Rockers did beat the Hart Foundation.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet. We're not quite there yet. That's a different
we're only at
WrestleMania
4. That was WrestleMania 5.
Yeah.
The Rock, that wasn't even WrestleMania 5.
No,
were they both at WrestleMania 5? Am I at least correct in that?
They were both at WrestleMania 5.
All right. That's all I needed. I needed a little bit of a win.
by WrestleMania 4, the Rockers are not actually the Rockers. This is probably around the time, maybe a little before, when the Rockers were brought in and they were so wild and partying that they got fired immediately, and it took them a while to get back. In 87, when WrestleMania 4 is coming around, the Rockers or 88 is when WrestleMania 4 happens. The Rockers, I believe, are still in the AWA.
Real quick, Universe, Galaxy, NBA. We do not do call-ins for this. This is like a podcast style format, so we kind of just do our topic, but we do interact with the chat. So if you guys have any questions and stuff, you can post them in there.
No one else can see that.
So the babyface turn kind of takes form in the summer of 1988. And this is really personal for me because this is around the time I go to my first wrestling show, and the Hart Foundation are on it. So Jimmy Hart is still managing the Hart Foundation, and it turns out that he has another team in his sights, and he winds up taking on the fabulous Rougeau brothers, Jacques and Raymond, who are in the process of turning heel. So the heel turn, the flip, comes in the summer of 88, where Jimmy Hart just starts clearly putting the Rougeaus in higher positions in the Hart Foundation. And that's the catalyst for the double turn. And you have a lot of Hart Rougeau stuff going on. And it's two great Canadian wrestling families. You have the French Canadians, the Rougeaus. You have the Harts from Western Canada. Well, Neidhart's from Reno, but whatever. And that kind of propels them forward. And 88, 89, they're a little directionless. It's not a great year for the Hart Foundation, 89. They do wind up wrestling Honky Tonk Man and Greg Valentine, a pre-Rhythm and Blues at WrestleMania 5. They wind up losing to the Brainbusters in a title match at SummerSlam. But 1990 comes around, and now they're going to kind of get pushed back into that higher position in 1990. So WrestleMania 6, they beat the Bolsheviks in like 30 seconds, if that. Like they just steamroll the Bolsheviks. And after WrestleMania 6, that's when Demolition turns heel because the Road Warriors are coming in. And it all comes to a head in Philadelphia at SummerSlam 1990, where it's 2 out of 3 falls. And this is an incredible match. This might be bell to bell, like actual in-ring Demolition's best match. It's Axe Smash and Crush, and they are going to lose for the last time the tag team titles to the Hart Foundation. And here is where it's during this second tag title reign as babyfaces. They do a babyface versus babyface match with the Rockers that was supposed to be taped for Saturday night's main event, but the ring breaks. Literally,
top rope snaps.
Not planned, but the top rope breaks during the match. The Rockers win the title. They're announced in front of the crowd as the tag team champions, and the match never airs. And they kind of kayfabe it by saying because the ring broke, the match was thrown out. But they just decided during the whole process that we're not going to have the Rockers win the tag titles.
And Bret, as good as Bret was in that moment too, Bret knows camera, TV. He comes from a wrestling family.
Yeah,
he immediately throws Shawn in an arrest hold, and he says to the ref, "Fix the ring and keep the camera tight on us, so you never see the like." He's thinking wrestling magic in his brain. You could fix the ring, and they just didn't do it. Like they should. Like in wrestling today, we'd have been like, oh, like that would have been done, or we would have just not cared, or just moved or fixed it after the match. But like him talking about that moment was really, really shows his wrestling IQ of just I'll throw him in a rest hold, fix the top rope, we'll keep the match going, because he was about at that time like, no, these guys should be the champion. They're the next ones up. Give them the belt. and it just
Mhm.
didn't go that way.
And a lot of criticism of Bret Hart. Yeah, it's a great match. It's a great match. A lot of the criticism of Bret Hart is about how he's an egomaniac. Everything's about him. He's a mark for himself. And all these things are true. All these things are true. But the thing with Bret Hart saying he's one of the best wrestlers ever is he's right. He's 100% correct.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So and people are starting to take note of this. And for a while, because WWF was always about big guys, and that's why a guy like Bret Hart, a guy like Shawn Michaels, it took them so long to get to another level. It's because big guys are being emphasized more and more and more and more. But slowly, like guys like, and he's not small, but a guy like a Mr. Perfect is getting a little bit of a push now. And it's body.
I think 6 foot 235 is small in that time of
Yeah.
wrestling.
Yeah, because
actually, I don't think we've actually gotten this far yet, but seeing him next to shoot, oh my gosh, Razor. How tall is Razor Ramon?
It's like 6'5", 6'6".
He looks like a
yeah.
giant compared to Bret Hart.
Scott Hall was a big man.
I always make the joke because when the NWO was over in WCW, and you would have Hall, Nash, and Six, 1, 2, 3 Kid, X-Pac. He would always, Scott Hall would always say, the big man, the little man, and the medium-sized man. And it's like, only in professional wrestling is Scott Hall the medium-sized man.
Yeah.
Scott Hall was a giant.
Yeah.
Scott Hall was, in any other, besides basketball, Scott Hall was a physical specimen. Like he was probably 6'5" at bare minimum. He was a tall guy.
Let's look that up.
Well, and we're gonna get to Scott Hall very quickly because this
6'7".
title reign, that might be a kayfabe hype, but it's close if it's not.
They have so I googled it. It says him 6'7", Scott Kevin Nash 6'10". So 6'6". He's 6'6", 6'5". Yeah,
probably.
So that's elevator boots. Yeah.
So this tag title reign that goes from SummerSlam of 1990 to WrestleMania 7 is kind of the last hurrah of the Hart Foundation. And so they lose the titles at WrestleMania 7 to the Nasty Boys, who are managed by their old manager, Jimmy Hart. And that's the last tag title reign for the Hart Foundation, because at this point, Neidhart is going to kind of phase into, he's an announcer for a little bit and he doesn't really wrestle. And the year after this, he's going to come back with Owen Hart as the new foundation. But the breakup of the Hart Foundation allows Bret Hart to really start to spread his wings in a singles career. And you want to talk great matches. You want to talk amazing matches. SummerSlam 91. Bret Hart keeps... If Shawn Michaels is Mr. WrestleMania, Bret Hart might be Mr. SummerSlam. Because especially these early SummerSlams, Bret was stealing the show constantly. And SummerSlam 1993 doesn't really, but 92 is no different, or 91 is no different, because him and Mr. Perfect, who is in agony, he's about to, what he thinks at the time is a career-ending back injury because he had this Lloyd's of London insurance policy. They have a great match, and Bret Hart wins the Intercontinental title for Mr. Perfect in just an incredible match. That SummerSlam 91 is one of my favorite shows ever. And a big part of it is this Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect match. But now Bret is very quickly gone from having this great tag team career to 3 months after the Hart, or 4 or 5 months after the Hart Foundation breaks up, he's now the Intercontinental Champion. And he's really being positioned as this guy who is incredible, like just an incredible technician. It's a little different than usually WWE's not just the land of the giants, but it's the land of the gimmicks. And one of the lasting legacies of Bret Hart is he was the first guy who his gimmick is just like, he's a great wrestler. Like that's the entire Bret Hart thing.
He was a hitman, but he never portrayed himself as a legit hitman. His hitman was like he was a pinpoint sharpshooter at your limbs. Like that was kind of his.
And this is around the time when he gets that singles run that he starts using the Scorpion Deathlock, and they call it the sharpshooter, which fits right into it. But Sting kind of popularized that in the US. I believe it was, I want to say Hiroshi Hase may have invented it, who was, if I'm not mistaken, one of the guys in the Viet Cong Express back in Stampede. But yeah, he starts implementing the sharpshooter here. He starts implementing the 5 moves of doom, where he doesn't have just a finisher, but he has a finishing sequence that he does. The Russian leg sweep, the backbreaker, the elbow off the second rope. He has a finishing sequence.
What are the 5 moves of doom?
I don't remember the exact moves now, but where most wrestlers would have a finisher, like that one move they can hit, like Sweet Chin Music or the Tombstone. Bret Hart had that. He had the sharpshooter. Bret Hart had his sharpshooter, but he would set it up the same way pretty much every time. He had a finishing sequence, not just a move.
So it's called, but they named it that.
I flickered out for a second.
You froze out a little bit, but I think you're good now.
No, yeah. They never said that, but that's what it became known colloquially as. Like just
I got
like in the video game aspect, it kind of became like, oh, here's your signatures, here's your finisher,
right?
And then and Bret was he was the signal. Like that era of wrestling was like, if Hogan hits the big boot, the big boot leads to the leg drop. Like it's just like your sequence to get to your finish. He real quick, just going back to that Bam Bam match I watched with Bret Hart. He hits this like elevator drop, like he's on Bam Bam's shoulders and pulls a schoolboy roll up from Bam Bam's shoulders, and it's like masterfully done.
Can I say the victory roll? Thing that bothered me?
Yeah, the victory roll.
The one thing that bugged me about that match. So like, there's a part where Bam Bam's picking him up for a suplex, and he like counters it right, and then knocks him over. But then the match continues to freaking go, and the part where Bam Bam has him up in the air. And he's just like, I'm dead. And the ref is like picking up his arm, and he's like, oh yeah, nope, dead. And then all of a sudden he's like, my neck is still hanging, my legs are still noodles, but my thumbs are up in the air, brother. It was like, what are you doing, my dude?
Even in that match, Bret's comeback, like where Sean would have kipped up. Bret does a back tumble set roll and then pops up, and then
I mean, to be fair, he did wrestle a lot that day.
Yeah, but Bret also just going back and rewatching it, man, his strikes were so good. His kicks were so good. Like when he hit a wrestler, it looked like he was legit kicking and punching. He probably was,
he
but
might have been.
His strikes.
One of the things Bret prided himself on is he never injured anybody. He never hurt any. Like he probably was a little snug just to make sure it looks good, but he never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
And so here it is. I wound up looking it up. The 5 moves of doom were the inverted atomic drop or the Manhattan drop, the Russian leg sweep, backbreaker, elbow drop from the second rope sharpshooter. Although sometimes it would start off with a vertical suplex or a running bulldog. And like these are all like
the side Russian leg sweep are the that was like a staple. Yeah.
Yeah. The pendulum backbreaker, he would do a lot if he could lift the guy. And one of the other great things I love that what Bret would do, and he could literally, he said, move the ring a few inches by doing it, is he's the only guy I really know that would sometimes take that turnbuckle bump from the chest. He would like run full speed in that turnbuckle, and he could move the ring.
Yeah.
So
he hit it so goddamn hard. Yeah, so hard.
Now he's the Intercontinental Champion. Now he is kind of really. That's not
Save the slander for next week. No, 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Oh.
2 weeks slanders on the table, but we'll put your comment up.
Oh yeah, it had to be nice to Shawn Michaels next week. Oh.
Yeah. You don't have to be nice. You just can't slander.
Yeah. Oh, that's gonna be hard.
It's one of those. It's one of those. If you don't got nothing nice to say, you can talk crap, but just make sure it's factual, not opinion.
Okay. There's a lot. Okay, that's easy.
No, wait, hold on.
That's it just has to be facts. I'm here for the facts.
Don't come at me with my Shawn Michaels facts. Who's to really say how many people were in Syracuse that day? So,
how dare you?
One of the things that happens here toward the end of that turnbuckle bump was so good. It was so good. One of the things that happens,
he would take the turnbuckle with his chest, and Sean would do the back flip up and over. Like,
yeah,
telling you, I think they are parallels. They're
when you hit that certain level, you have to do something out of the corner because Flair had the flippy thing too. Like once you hit a certain level of greatness, you have to do something in the corner like that. So Bret winds up, this first title reign gets cut a little short. He was actually negotiating to possibly move over to WCW, and he winds up, they have to take the belt off him really quick. So they concoct this story that he had like 104-degree fever, and he loses the Intercontinental title to one of the greatest Intercontinental champions of all time, the Mountie. The Mountie beats him at a house show, and very, very, very quickly loses that title back to Roddy Piper, or loses it to Roddy Piper, and that winds up with Bret deciding, no, I'm not gonna I'm not going to go to WCW after. I'm going to stay here. Signs a new deal. Gets assurances that he's going to be a focal point of the WWF, and he is because at WrestleMania 8, he is one of the very few people to get a clean win over Roddy Piper for the Intercontinental title. Like Piper did not, especially back then. Like he didn't even do clean jobs for Hogan, but another Canadian, in fact, the build to this was great because he talks about like being at the Hart house and eating sandwiches with Bret. Like the whole build to this is we're really good friends. We're almost family, but they almost kind of subtly played it like Piper might turn. You might get the old Roddy Piper back and forth. That didn't happen, but also, this is WrestleMania 8 is one of the times you get one of my favorites, the all pink Bret thing where it's pink tights and the pink singlet top.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very cool. But
I don't know.
I
don't know if I told you this, but with my notes, I even went as far as to get a pink pen.
There you go.
All of the Bret Hart notes are being written in all pink.
Hot pink and black.
I don't even like pink.
He made it cool.
I don't even like pink, but it was the pink and black attack.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
You forgot that in your monikers.
Yeah, there you go. So then, again, still the Intercontinental Champion here, and he's going to wind up losing that Intercontinental title for the last time to the British Bulldog, his brother-in-law, in Wembley Stadium. To this point, they say that this was legit. This is probably legitimately the biggest house that WWF ever drew. Was that SummerSlam '92 at Wembley Stadium? It was. They announced it at like 85,000, which is probably about right. It was bigger than WrestleMania 3. And Steven in the chat is right. So Piper has the sleeper on, and I love this finish. We actually, I want to say, no, I don't know if we redid this in PPW or not, but so yeah, Piper has a sleeper on Hart because Piper was using the sleeper as a finish at this point. And Hart walks up the turnbuckle and kind of flips back, so he has Piper pinned, and it was a really good finish. And again, an excellent
That's
match.
how Shayna Baszler loses every match she's in. Yeah.
Pretty much. So the Mr. SummerSlam streak's going to continue in 1992 because Bret and the Bulldog tear the house down. And they say Bulldog was so messed up on drugs that he didn't even know what was going on. And Bret kind of guided them through it. And it was a huge thing. British Bulldog gets to win in his hometown. But it's not all bad news for Bret because this is at the point where, and if this is going to be fresh in your mind if you've been watching that Mr. McMahon documentary, mid-1992, WWF is at the height of the steroid scandal. Like it's about to come down. It is. They're under federal investigation. Zahorian got arrested. I don't know if Vince had gotten arrested yet or not. So there comes a point where they say in like around mid to late 1992 where we're going to do drug testing now, and you got to get off steroids or get out of here. And immediately the British Bulldog is gone. Drops Intercontinental title to Shawn Michaels. Here we go again with that synchronicity. And the Ultimate Warrior is gone. And at this point, Ric Flair is the WWF champion, but Ric Flair is over 40, and especially back then, like if you were over 40, Vince was looking to get rid of you. Even Hogan, even Savage, because Savage was a champion before Flair. Mm-hmm. So Vince is looking to kind of start fresh. Vince is looking for a new face because Warrior's on the way out. And it's funny, start fresh. He almost put the title on Bob Backlund, they said. But he winds up kind of very conflicted on who can be the next champion, who he's going to make as his next guy. And he's looking at kind of all the different aspects of the business, and he looks at all this fan mail that Bret Hart is getting. Like Bret Hart is getting so much more fan mail than anybody else, and Bret Hart is incredibly popular internationally because even though the American business by 1992 was starting to really lag and the steroid scandal's not helping it, and they're really struggling domestically, internationally, Bret has always been a huge draw in Canada, but even in Europe, Bret Hart was super, super, super over on European tours. So they decide we're going to.
Well, also Vince also said during this documentary too, and Bret says it. You look around the locker room, and Bret was one of the only guys that had values and morals. And you weren't. I mean, he wasn't out doing what most of the other. I mean, he partied like the rest of them, but he wasn't like. You weren't going to find he was cheating on his wife or he was.
About that. I wouldn't go that far. No, I
he
wouldn't.
was the brightest star of the most moral guy on the roster, other than most. No,
I've read Bret's book. No, I've read Bret's book. No. He had his dalliances. You knew Bret wasn't going to get caught with steroids. You knew Bret. I mean, there had been allegations, like, and people don't know if it was true or not, but they say Dynamite Kid had a story in his book about smoking crack with Bret and the Junkyard Dog in the 80s. But you knew Bret wasn't going to.
Bret was a crackhead.
You knew.
I'm still waiting for the first part of his story, but you had to cut him off and start. I got 1992. Bret Michael leaves. Just kidding. Nothing.
No, Bret's gonna be the guy to take over the world championship.
Well, that's what I thought. He's about to take it off of Ric Flair, right? Because Ric Flair taps out. Ric Flair taps out.
Yeah.
And it was at a Coliseum videotaping. Like, literally, the only place you could see this was on Coliseum video.
Yeah, Bret was the king of Coliseum. Yeah.
It was in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan on Canadian Thanksgiving. Bret Hart beats Ric Flair to win the WWF title. And it's interesting because leading up to that, this is a month or so before Survivor Series 92. And originally Bret was going to wrestle Shawn for the Intercontinental title. And you would imagine Shawn just won the title. He's not going to win it. He's not going to lose it to Bret that quick. So now, instead of it being for the Intercontinental title, that's not on the line. It's going to be Bret and Shawn at Survivor Series. Oh, no. But it's 1992 and Bret Hart wins clean and everybody goes home happy. He beats Razor Ramon at the 1993 Royal Rumble. But guess who's coming back, dude? Guess who's coming back, brother? It's 1993. Monday Night Raw is kicking off. Bret Hart is a champion when Monday Night Raw kicks off. And the whole thing, the one thing I really liked that they did with Bret was when he won the title, they established he's going to be a fighting champion. He's going to just take on all comers, like even like mid-card guys and even baby faces. Like, he wrestles Virgil on Superstars. He wrestles guys you would not normally see the champion wrestle, but the whole idea is Bret Hart is a fighting champion. And so
he changed the moniker of you have to pay to see Bret Hart wrestle. Like, he was one, in my opinion, he was one of those first champions. Like, oh, I turn on weekly wrestling television on Monday Night Raw. Bret Hart, the world champion, is going to be on there wrestling.
And I don't know if this is the reason they did this, but it might be because at this point he is now everything that Hulk Hogan is not.
Yes,
he's not a muscle bound guy. He's a very accomplished technical wrestler, and he's gonna be there every week fighting. And he was just trying to carry the torch. He wanted to be that next guy. He wanted to be the guy to get that handoff. And that's kind of the plan, because I believe originally the idea was he was going to beat Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9, but then Hulk Hogan comes back.
Jesus Christ.
Listen, dude, I think I should win the belt. I think I should win the belt, Vince. Yeah, Bret and Papa Shango on Raw. Bret had a little feud with Papa Shango there for a minute.
Yeah.
I think
I still go back and watch that show, and I'm like, how, like, listen, regardless of everything that went down, Vince and Bruce and all those people are creative geniuses. But Jesus Christ, every time that scumbag Hulk Hogan gets involved, it's like, who allowed this to happen? Like, that show is such a train wreck because of that booking.
Because Hulk Hogan was Vince McMahon's first love. Yep. You never forget your first. Hulk Hogan was Vince's first.
And they do tell you, like, the years that everything. So, like, the interview that you watched. Yes, we watched this interview today, but it tells you at the beginning of the documentary that Vince canceled his last interview. Why didn't they go back and interview Hogan again, though? He canceled too. The only time that you see him, he's in the same t-shirt in 2021 when they interviewed him. Mm-hmm. It's now been 3 years, and they were able to interview other people after Vince, like, the story came out. But he, like, it doesn't say, oh yeah.
But even then,
other people. The
people who agreed to talk on camera, even when they were saying stuff that wasn't positive, they weren't saying anything negative either. It's definitely like how cops protect each other. Pro wrestlers, if you're under the same umbrella, will protect each other. Like,
you circle the wagons,
100%. Because even people, when he first left, Dave Meltzer's like, "Do you think he'll be back?" Goes 100%.
They always come back.
3 months later, Vince is back in charge again. Like,
they always come back. Come back.
We were kind of saying too is that Hogan was he knew who buttered his bread, because everything that made Hogan, he took direction from Vince McMahon. Like,
Vince
like, do this, say this, and he's like, all right, and he did it, and it worked.
Yeah, they had a great partnership and they made a whole lot of money. A whole lot of money.
Yep.
So when Hogan comes back, Vince kind of gets those stars in his eyes for Hogan.
And every
the-
wrestling booker's guilty of it. They all have
Oh,
that
yeah.
one little toy
Mhm.
they love, and they will find a way to make that toy shine, even though the crowd is sick of seeing that toy.
And it's
If
usually
not your son.
it's usually the people they see in their own image. Vern Gagne and AWA love to put over wrestlers, like legitimate amateur wrestlers. He probably was getting the Brock treatment.
Probably was, yeah.
If you look at Bill Watts like big, tough ex-football players, because that's who he was. If you look at Jerry Jarrett was an undersized, fiery babyface. That's who he liked to book. They like a lot of bookers would try to project their best image of themselves into their top babyface. Vince was a big bodybuilder, muscle guy, and that's Hulk Hogan. That's not Bret Hart.
Shut up, Ian. Shut up, Ian Bush. Oh wait, yams. No joke.
So
your booking was always good, Mike. I never had a complaint of when you had your toys.
So the plan here, coming out of WrestleMania 9, was, Hogan's going to get the title, and it's going to lead to SummerSlam, where it's going to be Hogan and Bret, and Hogan's going to pass that torch at SummerSlam 93, and Bret's going to be the man now. And to really be the guy, he's got to beat Hulk Hogan. They go to the point where they literally took publicity pictures, like promo pictures for posters and things, of Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan with the WWF title between them. But he's a little small, dude. I don't know if I can do it, man. I don't want to stay until SummerSlam, brother. And so at King of the Ring 93, the first King of the Ring pay-per-view, those plans changed, and now Yokozuna beats Hulk Hogan for the title. Hulk Hogan leaves the company after a European tour. Bret wins the King of the Ring, but now Bret's kind of moved down to a feud with Jerry Lawler, because this starts a formula. And I know we're running a little long, so I'm going to try to truncate
No, you're
this
good.
a bit. But this starts a formula where Vince McMahon basically tries to recreate Hulk Hogan. It fails. Hey, Bret, can you save us, please? Rinse, repeat. And that's going to happen twice here. It starts with Lex Luger. So Lex Luger gets Yokozuna at SummerSlam, wins by countout. Because they want to prolong it. The money's in the chase. But the smart money at this point is that when WrestleMania 10 comes around, Lex Luger's going to beat Yokozuna for that title. Especially now that because they had a thing where Luger couldn't challenge for the title, but he can if he wins the Royal Rumble. So the Royal Rumble rolls around in 1994, and they're starting to get cold feet on Luger. Like the business isn't really there. The Lex Express thing didn't really take off. He's not Hulk Hogan.
He's not Hulk Hogan. He's not charismatic. He doesn't play ball. He doesn't listen. He's doing everything Hogan didn't do. Hogan, listen. I'll listen to whatever you say, Vince. I'll do what you want, because what you do is turning to gold. And Luger was like, nah, I don't like it. And you're like, who are you? like just do as you're told.
So now we have the interesting 1994 Royal Rumble where Bret Hart and Lex Luger both win. Their feet hit the floor at the same time, although Luger really totally.
That was the first time that has been done, right?
It's the only time it happened. The Cena and Batista kind of happened, but that was a botch. That they just messed it up. Like Batista just did an interview about this. Like, I thought I was fired, because he was supposed to go over, but he did. So this is the time. Now they have a co-winners of the Royal Rumble, and also at this point you're starting to do the family feud, because earlier in late 1993, it was supposed to be the Hart family against Jerry Lawler and his Knights, but Lawler was going through some legal issues, so it became Shawn Michaels and his Knights. So it's basically Shawn Michaels and three masked guys against Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Bruce Hart, and Keith Hart. And the only member of the Hart family gets eliminated is Owen. And they're all celebrating, and Owen is, feeling some kind of way about this. And you can tell Owen is angry at Bret. There's a lot of friction there. And at that Royal Rumble, before Bret co-wins the Royal Rumble, earlier that night, Bret and Owen wrestled the Quebecers for the WWF title, Jacques and Pierre. So it's the Mountie, and I wonder whatever happened to that Pierre guy. I don't know if he can't be.
I think he died and became a Frankenstein.
He can't still be wrestling, can he?
Yeah.
So
and if he's wrestling, he can't be like, he's got to be terrible, really playing it safe and not doing anything crazy, right?
He's engaged to like Wednesday Addams now.
What's her name?
Steph DeLander.
Steph DeLander, yeah.
Yeah. So Bret, the whole story of the match is that Bret's knee is getting worked over horribly, but he won't tag out to Owen. He wants to stay and fight, and eventually Quebecers just overwhelm him because his knee is so shot. And then Owen picks up Bret, dusts him off after the whole thing, and then, in the words of Owen, Jacques and Bret, especially early on, are very linked.
Yes.
And in the words of Owen Hart, he kicked Bret's leg right out from under his leg. And that is the full Owen Hart heel turn. But then when Bret and Luger co-win the Royal Rumble, they're both going to wrestle Yokozuna at WrestleMania, but it's not fair that one of them would have to get to wrestle whoever wins that first match without having a match of their own, because they're going to be fresh. The other guy's going to be tired. So they flip a coin. And if it's heads, Bret Hart has to wrestle Owen Hart, and then Bret Hart gets a match at the end. And if it's tails, Lex Luger has to wrestle Crush, and then he'll wrestle the winner of Bret and Yokozuna at the end. Wouldn't you know, it's going to be Bret and Owen in one of the best matches in WrestleMania history at WrestleMania 10.
Yeah.
And then
there's a pretty good ladder match that show too.
I'm not saying this for effect. I think if I had to pick one,
it's a great match. It's a great match.
So good. It's
so good. Bret and Owen is. Here's a question for you. Maybe this could be a future topic. Brother versus brother matches. Does Cody and Dustin and AEW Bloodbath rival Bret and Owen?
It's
that was
up
a good
there.
match too.
Those are the two best ones. Those are the two best ones. Whenever Matt and Jeff would link up, it wasn't that good. They were great as a team, but never great as opponents.
Young Bucks fought each other?
I don't think not well. If they have, not on big stage, yeah.
And very early in their career, Jay and Mark Briscoe would wrestle quite a bit.
Yeah,
they had some really good matches. But so yeah,
watching ROH.
Bret Hart's the champ. This isn't CZW. This is pre ROH.
Oh shit.
So Bret and Owen they tear the house down. Bret wins the title at the end of WrestleMania 10, and I love the visual at the very end of all the baby faces have Bret on their shoulder. He's a hero. He's the new champion. Roddy Piper's in there. He was the referee for the match, and all the baby faces are celebrating, and Owen Hart is just standing in the aisle staring daggers through Bret. One of the great endings of a pay-per-view at that time.
I would have loved Owen as a world champion. That should be a what if. What if
Owen
won?
Well, we'll make it a very quick what if, because it should have happened later this year.
Yeah.
So, and they have even almost as good, if not better, than that WrestleMania match. Here comes Mr. SummerSlam again. He had an incredible cage match with Owen Hart at SummerSlam 94. Incredible. Can't say enough good things about that cage match.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that's going on at this point is Bob Backlund has gone crazy. Bob Backlund had a match with Bret Hart on Superstars, lost the match, and then snapped and put Bret Hart in the crossface chicken wing and attacked him and attacked all these other people. The rumor, and I don't know how true.
He still lives the gimmick.
The rumor is, and I don't know how true this is, but there was always a rumor that the whole thing was going to be that Backlund was put under a curse by the returning Papa Shango, but they never did that.
Oh, that would have been so good.
Wait,
Papa Shango and Bob Backlund were in the same room that night.
Yeah.
When we met Bob Backlund,
yeah,
Papa Shango was not in character, but he was there.
It's that curse.
Oh, he's following him.
So this is where I say that Owen Hart probably should have won a world title. I think you just have Owen beat Bret instead of Backlund, but Backlund will beat Bret and this is a match. It's not a great match because Bret's like literally sitting in the crossface chicken wing for like 10-15 minutes as Stu Hart agonizes on whether or not to throw in the towel, and finally Helen takes it and throws it in. And Owen is so good in this though, because the whole idea was that it was a submission match, but the guy in the ring couldn't submit. His corner man had to throw in the towel, and Bret's corner man was Bulldog. Backlund's corner man was Owen. But Bulldog's chasing Owen around the ring, and he trips and he gets knocked out. He hits his head on the steps, and he's like out for 20 minutes. Like Bulldog's just like dead. So then Stu takes the towel, and Owen is just pleading, like, "I'm sorry, this has gone too far. He's gonna break Bret's arm. This is gonna end Bret's career. Please, just begging. Like, I'm so sorry for the way I've been acting." Like, Owen is just so good at what he's doing here that finally Helen rips the towel from Stu and throws it in. And immediately, like snapping the fingers, Owen's like jumping around and laughing at Bret. He's so good. He's so good. He's so good in this.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But Backlund was the champion for all of like 2 days because then Diesel wins it. And Diesel is the next attempt to recreate Hulk Hogan.
Now, do you think Bret didn't want to lose to Diesel, and that's why they put Backlund in there for that middleman?
No, they didn't want to do babyface. So they just had a transitional champion. That was kind of the formula. Besides Yokozuna and superstar Billy Graham, like, you didn't have a lot of long-term heel champions up to this point in history. Like Ivan Koloff, when he beat Bruno, he was only champion for like a week.
Yeah.
And then he was just there to pass it on to Pedro. Stan Stasiak was there to pass it back to Bruno. That was kind of their formula. Just a quick transitional champion. Iron Sheik was there to pass it from Backlund to Hogan. So Bret kind of languishes through 95. He feuds with Backlund for a little bit. He feuds with Jean-Pierre Lafitte. I wonder whatever happened to that guy. The pirate that stole his jacket. But they had, again, an incredible match. We talked about the Kiss My Foot match last week with Jerry Lawler, which leads to him feuding with Isaac Yankem, who was a very, very young Kane. And finally, by October-ish, they're like, I think this Diesel experiment's just about over. So at Survivor Series, in another broken record, incredible match, Bret's going to win that title from Diesel. And it's really, this is a really interesting match because it's the first time you see a table spot in WWF. Because ECW is kind of like the whole, like, it's the cult hit of wrestling. ECW in 95 was so different from WWF and WCW. Like, Bret flies off the apron and goes through a table. Diesel brings him back in, and Bret just plays possum as Diesel's going for the jackknife. He just keeps falling down. And finally Diesel goes to pick him up. Bret small packages him for the pin. And this is going to lead to the boyhood dream, WrestleMania 12, the Iron Man match, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, where they go the whole hour and nobody gets a fall. It's 0-0 after an hour, so we got to go to overtime, which it's Gorilla Monsoon's fault because that should have been a draw. After an hour, it's a draw. They didn't say anything about overtime. So it's Gorilla Monsoon's fault because about 2-3 minutes into overtime, Shawn Michaels gets the win. And Bret's going to take some time off here. Bret's actually going to step away. He's been at it. He's been in WWF at this point for about 10 years, nonstop. And that schedule, this is when that schedule was like 300 nights a year. And
he was that fighting champion. His title defenses that time, and his work rate was just out of control.
Yeah, so Bret's taking some time off. He wanted to get into acting a little bit. He did they did Lonesome Dove the series, and Bret Hart acted in Lonesome Dove the series. And
made his appearance on The Simpsons as well.
I don't know if it was around that time, but yeah, he actually has a Simpsons toy. He's the only wrestler to have like a Simpsons action figure. Although I guess now he's not the only wrestler on The Simpsons because John Cena was just on it.
Oh, really?
This weekend, yeah. John Cena.
Did we get a yellow John Cena?
He looks like Dave Meltzer. Like the Simpsons John Cena looks like Dave Meltzer. I'm not joking. So,
I'm Googling it right now.
And at this point, like, Bret's contract was legitimately up. And this is around the time. Doesn't he look like Dave Meltzer?
I'll tell you what right now. If you would have said that's John Cena as a Simpson, I wouldn't have believed you.
No, it's Dave Meltzer. So Bret is legitimately subject of a bidding war here. So
I hate his Simpsons character. I'm not gonna lie.
So Shawn Michaels is a champion now. It's 1996, and this is a point where WWF's about to get their ass kicked. And I'm not putting that blame on Shawn Michaels. I'm going to be fair here. I'm not putting that blame on Shawn Michaels. It's less about what WWF was doing wrong and more about what WCW was doing right. They were firing on all 8 cylinders here because Diesel and Razor Ramon are about to leave. And that streak they talk about, that 83-week winning streak, everybody thinks it starts, or not everybody, but a lot of people think it started when Hogan turned heel. It started the day that streak started was the day Scott Hall showed up on Nitro. And you know who I am, or you know where I'm from, but you don't know why I'm here, or you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. And that was the start of it. That was the start of it. And Shawn's kind of powerless. Shawn, nothing WWE can do. Like, Shawn's feuding with Vader. Shawn's feuding with the British Bulldog. It's not working. They're getting stomped. They're getting stomped by by WCW. And maybe the one thing Eric Bischoff has in his head, maybe this one last thing, the one thing that we can really do to push WWE over that brink, push them farther down, we can try to get Bret Hart.
Here's a quick question. What if in some world, what if your reality, Shawn, because there was a rumor that Shawn was almost going to leave the WCW and go with Kevin and Scott. what if Sean's the third man and they essentially make the Click the NWO, which essentially the NWO is loosely based on the Click anyway. Do you think it has the same? I mean, like Hogan turning heel for the first time in his career and donning the black and silver is iconic. But do you think it has a big impact of Sean because of the curtain call and everything that happened with it? Do you think it's as effective with Sean as the third man in the NWO?
It's effective, but it's not as effective. As much as we want to drag him through the mud, Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan. Yeah. Hulk Hogan at this point in 1996, when Hulk Hogan and if you don't like him, that's fine. It's whatever.
No, his impact of wrestling is undeniable.
But at this point in 1996, when Hulk Hogan says, "I'm bigger than wrestling," he's right. He's gotten very stale at this point. He's gotten incredibly stale at this point, which is why that heel turn was so necessary. But he's Hulk Hogan. And yeah, the real hook that shoots like that the Outsiders, the Hostile Takeover, that was really, really a great jump start. But Hogan takes it to a whole other level because it's Hulk Hogan and he's a bad guy.
Yep.
Where we've seen Shawn Michaels as a bad guy before. We've seen this, and no disrespect to Shawn Michaels, but at this point, star power wise, he's not Hulk Hogan.
No,
because
totally agree.
Bret Hart's not Hulk Hogan either. Like it wouldn't have been as effective if Bret Hart was the third guy.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan.
It wouldn't have been as effective if Sting was that guy.
Right.
It would have been cool for that company, but if you look at a global level, Hulk Hogan doing it is what puts your company on the map.
And they say Sting was like the emergency. Like if Hulk Hogan gets cold feet at the very last second, it's going to be Sting.
Even if Ric Flair was the third guy, it wouldn't have had the same impact. Ric Flair's Ric Flair.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been a right match. But at this point, WWF is on the ropes, and Bret is courting. Like Bret's taking offers. Like Bret gave it some thought, but he still had that loyalty to Vince, which is definitely not going to come back and bite him in the ass in a year. But he's he entertains that offer with Vince, and Vince is struggling. WWE is not doing well financially at this point. They haven't for a few years. They never really recover from the steroid scandal at this point.
Yeah.
And Bret was
not
a great
even
champion.
With the restaurant on Times Square.
Oh, that was later. That was when they were at their apex.
Yeah.
So Bret has to make a decision. Bret, after that, like as the summer turns into the fall, Bret's got to make a decision now. And that, by the way, that restaurant lost so much money. That restaurant lost one of their best years ever. It's like when the Attitude Era was at its peak, like 2001 or something like that, or 2000. WWE actually lost money that year because of the restaurant.
Wow.
So that was like the last fiscal year they lost money was because of that restaurant.
That's crazy.
Restaurant space in the middle of New York City. I was never.
Well, you said in Times Square. Like, why?
Oh yeah. I was. It's funny. I was never there when it was WWF New York, but I was there later when it was a Hard Rock Cafe. That's what it still is.
I'm bummed I never got a chance to experience it. That was like one of my. There's three things I always wanted to do as a kid. I wanted to go to Times Square, New York. I wanted to go to Nickelodeon Studios, and I wanted to see the Cartoon Network studios. And all of them are gone.
Times Square's still there. It's just there's no WWF restaurant.
There's no whole Cartoon Network like hotel that's down in Reading that like is attached to like an amusement thing.
Is it still?
Yes.
Because didn't they say even Cartoon Network is getting the plug pulled on it soon?
The website did. The website. Yeah. Warner Discovery's like getting rid of everything. So basically, what happened with
Scott Hall goes to WCW. WWF wants Bret back.
What
ends
Bret?
up happening?
Everybody wants Bret.
Yeah.
Everybody wants Bret.
But he doesn't want to disappoint.
So he makes a deal with Vince. Like Vince can, like if you just of course a manager of a restaurant embezzling money. I don't know.
A pro wrestling restaurant. Yeah,
a pro wrestling. We found the only business dirtier than dirtier than pro wrestling.
The restaurant business.
So Vince comes to Bret, like he can't, like dollars per year, Vince cannot match WCW's offer. So Vince comes to Bret with this great idea. It's like, I can't match their money. I can't give you per year what WCW is going to give you. What I can give you is basically a lifetime contract. A contract that would literally, well, no, it wouldn't still be in effect now. I got my times off. He went to Bret in 1996 with a 20-year contract.
He gave him bonuses that if he took to WCW would have to pay him more.
Right. So he gives Bret this 20-year contract. The first 5 years are going to be as a wrestler. Good money. I think he was at that point going to be the highest paid guy in the company. And then the final 15 years at a little bit less money, we're going to be office. And basically the sales job that Vince gives to Bret is you're going to be my right-hand man. Like you're gonna be my right-hand man.
So
you're going to
he
be
ended up giving that to Triple H. Is that what ended
basically,
up happening there?
yeah. But at this point, Triple H is just like a mid-card guy. And Vince's right hand at this point is Pat Patterson. He's basically, you're going to be Pat. You're going to be Pat Patterson. And Bret takes the deal. He's like, this is my home. I want to be here. I'm going to take this 20-year deal. Comes back, has another, I'm a broken record here, great match with Stone Cold Steve Austin at the 1996 Survivor Series. Incredible match. Has arguably an even better match with Austin at WrestleMania 13. Some people will say it's the best. It's funny. Some people say it's the best WrestleMania match in history. Usually the two best WrestleMania matches in history. Here we go with that parallel again. It's Bret Hart and Steve Austin at 13 and Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker at 25.
Yeah.
And shortly after this, that Bret Austin match is the big catalyst because Bret is getting booed. Like Bret is kind of, his character is a little whiny. It's not the babyface people want anymore. Steve Austin is on fire. So
those early shades Attitude Era are starting to creep in.
So they do the double turn.
Trash TV, bad guys are becoming cool.
Yep. And they do the double turn. Bret turns heel, Austin turns babyface, but Bret only turns heel in the United States. And he kind of takes that sentiment of, this is what you people want. You people want Steve Austin. He curses. He's a loud mouth. He cheats. He'll attack people in a dime. Like everything that made Steve Austin. He's like, this is what you want. You turn your back on. Yeah, you turn your back on me.
In the hospital.
Yeah, well, that was a little.
That didn't happen yet. Yeah.
Still,
oh, sorry.
But like literally, when
I only know some things,
We're working. We're getting you there.
Literally, the month before Bret comes back, they do a thing where Brian Pillman interviews Steve Austin, and he goes, "If you put an S in front of Hitman, you get exactly what I think of Bret Hart," and that's the type of thing that got Steve Austin over.
Well, Bret wasn't. Is that when Bret wasn't around and Steve was saying those things to try to draw Bret into that match?
Yeah. That was when they knew they had the deal, so they were just kind of pushing it in that direction. And this is the start of that momentum starting to shift. Like 1997, Raw got beat by Nitro every single week of the entire year, but the gears were starting to turn, the momentum was starting to shift a little bit. And a lot of it was Steve Austin against the Hart Foundation. Mm-hmm. A lot of it was that, even though Bret got hurt and Bret was in a wheelchair and Bret and Shawn are at each other's throats at this point, like literally they're getting fights backstage. There's that whole Sunny Days comment where even while Shawn Michaels was having an affair with Sunny, he accuses Bret Hart on live television of having an affair with Sunny, even though that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
He accuses Bret of it.
Is this slander? No,
I'm
joking.
This is fact.
I know.
That's fact.
I know.
That's fact.
This is factual.
Do we have evidentiary support?
Yes.
Everybody admits it. Yeah.
Everyone admits it, but is there evidence?
Yes.
But evidence, the actual tangible evidence.
There's a promo you can watch of Sonny sitting on Shawn's lap, and they have to keep the camera above their waist because Shawn is rumored, and you can see it in Sonny's face. His fingers are preoccupied. Yes.
And this is after Shawn was kind of pressing Vince to have Sonny's boyfriend fired.
Yeah.
So just facts, just the facts.
Hey,
no, I'm writing them down.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Hey, listen. I'm the first to admit, Shawn, not a great guy. Back in his drug abuse days, not great.
I mean, let's just get real. Let's just call a spade a spade. Pro wrestling of the past wouldn't pass today's society.
No.
And a huge reason because of Shawn Michaels.
But it's not just Shawn Michaels. Again, Bobby Heenan wasn't exactly helping out either.
The worst he could say about Bret is he did make allusions that Shawn was gay and he cheated on his wife. So this all comes to a head at SummerSlam 97, where the main event is Bret Hart against The Undertaker. The Undertaker's a champion with Shawn Michaels as the referee. And they do a great angle here where Shawn's fine with The Undertaker, but he hates Bret. But I think they even said something where if Shawn doesn't kind of call this down the middle, he's going to something's going to happen with him. He won't get a title shot or something.
Yeah.
So all hell breaks loose. Shawn gets a chair, goes to swing it at Bret. Bret gets out of the way. Shawn levels the Undertaker.
Just destroys him.
Bret covers Undertaker, and Shawn very begrudgingly counts that 3. And Bret Hart is the WWF champion for the 5th and final time. And this leads us to, of course, he has a few things with the Patriot. The Patriot was in there for a second. And this leads us to, of course, Survivor Series 1997. But again, WWF is still not out of the woods yet. Like, business is starting to slowly turn around. The house shows are getting better. Austin's on fire. The Rock is starting to build up some steam now.
This is when WWE is saying, we have better shows. Why are we still losing?
Exactly. WCW, the NWO is starting to run out of gas a little bit. Actually, WCW is still doing okay because they still have Hogan versus Sting. Hogan versus Sting is sitting there waiting for Starrcade.
Yeah.
So
Bischoff started losing creative control and he couldn't do what he wanted to do, and Hogan started taking full control, and we start getting Hogan booking, and it's not good.
Hogan always had full control. Hogan always had, at least.
But I mean, he listened to Bischoff a little bit in the beginning, and like the build-ups to the NWO was great. The longer the NWO went under Hogan, it got stale. It
was less Bischoff and more Kevin Sullivan, but yeah.
So the Viagra on a pole match wasn't good.
No, that was later. That was Russo.
Oh, Russo, yeah.
That was Russo. So Vince comes to Bret shortly before Survivor Series 1997 and says, "Bret, I can't afford this contract. Like, I can't pay you what I promised you. I'm gonna have to. I'm giving you permission to. You either have to take a pay cut if you want to stay here, or you can go and negotiate with WCW. There's a window where you can negotiate with WCW." And in the lead up to in Montreal, Survivor Series 97, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels are doing this negotiation. And it becomes clear, like a little bit before this, not that long before this, that Bret's leaving. And obviously they want Bret to lose to Shawn. And the big reason Bret says no is he says to Shawn, like, I have no problem putting you over. I'll put you over on the way out here. And Shawn, and they're at each other's throats at this point. Shawn says something to the effect of, "I wouldn't do that for you."
He goes, "I appreciate your he goes, regardless of what we go, we could put it in the ring. We could put a great match on and stuff like that."
He wanted to give it up on Raw. He didn't want to do
No. He was 100% about to drop it to Shawn. And Shawn says, because they hated each other, Shawn says, "I appreciate that. I just need you to know I wouldn't do the same for you." And when he said that to Bret, Bret was like, "I don't care what anyone says. I am not dropping the paddle to this guy."
Yep. He said, "Nope. I was going to do business, but no. This guy's too insufferable. I'm not losing in my home country to this guy." After he said that, I think he had offered to lose it to Austin beforehand, lose it to Shamrock beforehand, but he really wanted to
beat Shawn and then hand it to him on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, and that's what he really wanted to do. He wanted to beat Shawn at Survivor Series and then hand the title over. And
but he didn't have to contractually be at Monday Night Raw the next day,
right?
So Vince is terrified that he's going to take the title over to WCW and make a mockery of it.
Yeah, because if you go back a year, Medusa does the same thing with the women's title and drops it in a trash can.
And also, if you go back a little bit further, they've done this screw job before.
Yes, Wendy Richter and Moolah,
yeah. And Tony Storm's still looking at the fuck her up.
And Trish Stratus as well. I think he fell asleep for that part of the documentary.
What's that? Trish Stratus got screwed over?
Not in the same way, but yeah, I think they said that one of the storylines that she was supposed to make out with a female character, and she said that she told Vince that was not something she thought her character would do, and then the next week she lost her championship.
Well, that's a little different. That's getting punished for
right. That's what I was saying. It's a little. It wasn't the same.
No, we're gonna take the title off you and fire you
type thing, but still kind of like I'm gonna screw you out of your title.
A screw job is when two talent get in the ring.
Correct.
They think that one's gonna win.
Like I said, it's not a screw job. Just I'm going to screw you out of your title.
Right. Yeah. Right. This is vindictive booking.
Right.
So the thing that kind of complicates this whole matter is one of the clauses in Bret's contract is that for the last 30 days of that contract, he has creative control over his character. He has creative control over his matches, which means, because this is something only really Hulk Hogan had, I think, at this point. But what this means is if Bret says no, legally, it's no. Legally, if Bret says, I don't want to do this, you can't say, well, you're doing it. So that is so they can't just say, oh, no, you're losing to Shawn. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. For one thing, if you want to go old school, the way that would be settled is, well, you know, if he wants to take it, let him take it from me. And Shawn Michaels wasn't taking that title from Bret Hart. Shawn
Bret
Michaels
Hart was a great
not,
entertainer. He was not a shooter.
Shawn Michaels, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I said. Sean was a great entertainer,
you said,
but not a shooter.
Bret Hart. You said Bret Hart.
Or did I? Sean.
Yeah.
Sean
So,
is a great entertainer, not a shooter.
Yeah, Bret Hart is Stu Hart's son. So that wouldn't have went well.
He's eating cat shit burgers. That guy's built different.
Yeah, exactly. That would not have ended well for Sean. So when it all comes down to everybody, we could do a whole episode on the screw job. It basically comes.
Do you think it was a work?
No,
I don't think so. There's people out there because Scott Hall said he doesn't believe it.
Wrestlers are so cynical. I think everything's a work.
Yeah. It's
my whole thing.
You never know, but I don't think it was.
My whole thing, whenever anybody brings it up, what's in it for Bret?
Yeah.
What's in it for Bret? And I think after Owen died, he would have said something. I think he would have just opened up the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well,
especially for that.
I think what he said in the documentary was that was also a work.
What? Owen Hart? Owen Hart was definitely not a work.
He said
not
a work. That it was a work. That
he said they shoot.
They did it. They did it to get back at him.
Well, he then walked it back. I think it was like that was like his initial like gut reaction, like, oh no, it's silly.
He had the sister-in-law. Everybody like, yep. They had private investigators and all.
He stood by his family's side in the lawsuit, but then when he realized, he stood. Yeah. Then when he realized,
I'll give you that one. We'll save this for the debate.
Yeah. When he realized, just to kind of say that too is there's also the theory that after Bret left and Owen decided to stay, they decided that they were going to make Owen a joke character, and they really diminished the Hart name.
Blue, what was it?
The Blue Blazer. But even before the Blue Blazer, they were putting him in the Nation of Domination as a funny bit. They did a lot to try to diminish Owen as a person, which only made him more popular.
And he had a very good tag team with Jeff Jarrett too. A very good tag team.
So I loved those two together. Those two together.
The other thing too is this is the peak of the Attitude Era, and it's all about like sex and violence and stuff like that. And a lot of the sexual stuff, like I think one of the things they pitched before they brought back the Blue Blazer that was like.
He was going to have an affair with Deborah.
Yeah, and he's like, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that to my wife. Like, if you want to talk about like an actual good guy, Owen Hart. Yeah, Owen Hart is and then what happened. So the Montreal screw job happens. We could do a whole episode on that. And Bret's gone. Bret punches Vince, breaks some monitors, and a lot of people think that's why there was never any litigation over this, because Vince could have pressed charges for assault. He could have sued Bret for the hitting him, for destruction of property. Bret could have sued because they ignored his creative control clause in his contract. They just kind of agreed to part ways. So Bret goes to WCW.
They handle it like professional wrestling should probably handle it. Yeah. You broke my shit. You punched me. Vince knew going in, I have to let him have this. That's the boys. That's how it works.
One way or another.
Like, I got to take that punch. I got to eat my crow. And if I don't eat my punch, then these locker room boys are never going to have my respect or back. And I got to take that punch.
See, Bret didn't tell the story that he tells in his book where he says, if you're still in this room because he says when Vince came in, he was naked and he was getting out of his gear, and Vince comes into the locker room and he's like, Vince, I'm going to finish getting dressed. And if you're still in this room when I'm finished getting dressed, I'm going to knock you the fuck out. That's what he said. According to his book, that's what he told Vince. And Vince is just kind of standing there trying to reason with him, and then he gets up and then boom. And they said he calls it a punch that would knock out a rhinoceros.
Yeah. Yep.
So Bret's over in WCW.
Vince had to take it. Vince had to take that. If Vince doesn't leave there without a black eye, then I don't think the locker room fully ever trusts Vince to the same extent.
I mean, there were some people the only people who actually left were Neidhart and the Bulldog. Owen stayed. Neidhart stayed for like one night.
Mick Foley contemplated leaving.
Yeah, Mick Foley didn't go to Raw the next night. But he's like, I'm actually, this is the best stage I've had in my career, and he wound up coming back. But because Mick Foley was rooming with Kane at the time, and he's like, and Foley's like, I don't think I can go back. I don't think I can go back after that. And Kane's like, I've been spinning my wheels, and I have this great gimmick I just started. I got to go back. And Foley's like, I totally understand. So the way that WCW addresses this the next night on Nitro, because Nitro started at 8, Raw didn't start until 9. The entire NWO comes out with Canadian flags and talking about how, Bret's going to come join us. Bret's going to come with us. And they're like, no, Bret Hart wouldn't do that. Bret Hart wouldn't join the NWO. So this is all leading to Starrcade. And Starrcade, the big thing is going to be 2 of the big matches. You're actually going to have Larry Zbyszko against Eric Bischoff. And if Bischoff wins, NWO gets to take over Nitro. And then the main event, and they've been literally building to this for a year and a half, Hulk Hogan against Sting for the WCW title. And Bret was announced as a special referee for Bischoff and Zbyszko. And this kind of gets botched because Bischoff is supposed to load up his karate like shin guard with like a piece of metal and then kick Zbyszko in the face, and Bret's going to catch him. But the piece of metal flew out and he just kicked Zbyszko in the face and knocked him out, so it made Bret look stupid. Sean at first said he didn't know, but then later he did admit he did know. Sean,
the only person who's standing fast to saying he didn't know and he know nothing and I don't believe him for one goddamn second is Bruce Pritchard. Out of all the people, yeah, and he's like, I didn't know nothing. I didn't know anything. Bruce Pritchard is he is as close to Vince as anyone else has ever been. But Sean 100% knew. But because Sean and Triple H and all those guys knew, they were told, you swear on everything, you let it all fall on my shoulders. That's what Vince said, and they all said, I don't know. But but Sean did come out and say that I knew 100%.
He actually came out and admitted that. Back in, it was only a few years after this. It was like 2001, 2002. He admitted it on that old show, WWE Confidential. He admitted it. So Bret is now in WCW, and everybody's like, oh, well, Sting's going to cleanly beat Hulk Hogan here. And kind of, that's going to be WCW turning the tide in the war with Sting getting this clean win over Hulk Hogan. I don't know about that, dude. I don't think you should beat me clean, brother. Well, not everybody.
Bret in everybody retrospect, said, "Oh, I didn't believe going into it. I think this could happen." Do you think he was that? Where I think he's that smart enough that he's like, this is a possibility.
I think it was like literally. If you ever watched that movie Wrestling with Shadows, he wore a wire into his meeting with Vince.
Yeah,
for this documentary, he trusted Hebner. He trusted Hebner when Hebner had to do it to save his job.
Yep,
and he probably just wanted. Like, this is a guy I've worked for the last 10 plus years of my life. I don't think he would do that to me. And of course it's Vince McMahon. Of course he will.
I love how every wrestling fan's like, I'm so sick of hearing the Montreal Screwjob, but as soon as it comes up, the chat blows up more than any. Everybody. This whole conversation, everyone's like crickets, and then the Montreal Screwjob, and it's like,
I've held on as long as I can. Can you fill time for a minute? I have to run to the bathroom really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we got some time.
Kick me off of this, and we'll fill some time.
I'll talk some Screwjob with the chat and Lily.
You do that.
Nope, Lily's leaving me too.
Double pipe.
Yeah, this is the Bret episode's gonna go a little longer, but Sean's won't be as long when we have to do the crossover between him and Bret, because we obviously are.
If you want to win the debate, you better come with enough facts.
We can say more from Sean's side, but I think we don't have to rehash a lot of this because we've covered it in the Bret, because they've crossed paths with one another. But as we are in the story right now, is BP is draining his little hitman. Bret is now in WCW, and he's making his illustrious long career in the heartland of WCW. Spoiler alert, that's not the case. But I will say this, I'll say it when BP comes back too, is that I feel like Bret showed probably some of his best charisma in WCW. I think him and Sean really forced a side of Bret out that actually was entertaining to watch as a character, because I felt like it was real and it pulled a real side of Bret out, and him being confused by the audience.
Did you really call BP's member his hitman when you had the opportunity to call it the Foundation?
I like his little hitman. Yeah, his little hitman. No, mine's definitely not a showstopper. I'm more of a click, I think. But yeah, but knowing
degenerate works.
But knowing what you know about Sean, how could you be okay with what he did? I think business had to be done. I'm going to be honest, as someone who's part of creative control. If someone says, well, first off, if I'm at $1 billion corporation, $1 million corporation, and someone refuses to do the job, you gotta get the job done. That's just how the entertainment industry works, and you're not bigger than the company, even though you don't like the guy. So in that aspect, I personally don't agree with Bret, and I think what had to be done had to be done. just it is what it is. And even if Shawn wasn't involved in it, if it was Taker, if it was any other wrestler, and they felt like they had to do that, I would. It sucks, and it's not good. But I think the right decision was made. We'll bring BP back in. What do you think when it comes to the screw job in general? Do you think the right call was made? Do you think they exhausted all options? It's not like they didn't try to find 1,000 different ways to get this done, but they had an idea that they wanted to roll with Shawn, and that was the way the Control wanted to go, and Bret didn't want to play ball.
I think Vince McMahon did what he felt he had to do to save his company. Yes.
Agreed. Same. Yeah.
And with WCW, it's not the WCW Bret Hart run is kind of a disaster.
I said this when you get away. I said I think this is the best charisma we've seen in Bret Hart in a long time.
Yeah. But because Hogan's always going to be the focal point and points he never really goes one-on-one with Hogan, but he's in the NWO, he's not in the NWO. He does a thing with Flair, with Savage, Piper.
Oh, damn.
And it it was Hypnosis. He was Psychosis, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But he wanted the match with El Dandy because he's a great wrestler and he's a jam-up guy. But yeah, he got to do Mad TV he actually wrestled Will Sasso for Mad TV, who now does I know he does like a lot of podcasts with Van Vliet, because he was part of that whole thing where like who has a better Jesse Ventura impression, Will Sasso or
did you see what they just recently did?
Karrion Kross.
Where Cross was in the interview
with Ventura,
Cross showed up with Ventura, and then they FaceTime Will Sasso, and they're both talking as Ventura to Ventura.
Because at that point, this is when Ventura is the governor of Minnesota, and they actually have Sasso playing Ventura on there, and Bret actually comes on Mad TV, and they try to do like almost like an Andy Kaufman thing where Bret legit in wrestling sense hits Will Sasso with a chair, and they actually have a match on Nitro, Will Sasso against Bret Hart.
Yeah. No, I think some of Bret's best character work or most personable character work is during his WCW run. Maybe he's not his best in-ring work, but I thought he was entertaining.
Yeah, no, he had his moments. It's just the booking was way off. And then by 1999, Vince Russo comes around, and a match, and it's unfortunate because of the other guy in the match. They actually did a match in 1999, I believe, or maybe 2000. It may have been 2000. Yeah, I think it was 99. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. But they did a match. It was the first time Nitro was in the arena where Owen Hart died, the Kemper Arena in Kansas City. And they did a tribute match to Owen Hart, but it was Bret Hart against Chris Benoit. Which, great match, but then again, it can be difficult.
You look back on, you're like, yikes.
Yeah. So when Vince Russo comes in,
real quick, I don't really remember from the top of my head. I know we're going long. I know that, like I said it before, this one's gonna be a little longer. But when we do the Shawn one, when it comes to the Shawn Bret crossover, we're not gonna dive in like we did here because
but this wasn't a crossover episode.
There's a lot of Shawn Bret crossover.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying, I'm okay with this going 2 hours. I'm okay with Shawn's also going 2 hours. I'm not saying you have to, I understand that there's parts in here that are a crossover, but he's not just giving me the history of Shawn versus Bret. He's giving me
I know, but like I said, a lot of the major ones are like there's the major story of both these people.
Shawn does have that whole second act, though. Shawn does have that whole second act of his career where Bret's retired.
And a third act where we'll get into that as well. But how did Bret, so Owen does pass away while he's in WCW. Does he take time off or does he go? He
took some time off. He was actually supposed to be on the Tonight Show. And I think they're going to set up an angle with him and DDP or somebody, but there's going to be an angle on the Tonight Show.
I actually would have liked that matchup.
I think they did wind up wrestling, I believe.
Did they?
Yeah, but yeah, Bret took some time off after Owen passed. And then by the end of 1999, that's when WCW, the rails are coming off. They lure Vince Russo and Ed Ferreira away from the WWF to be their writers, the head of creative. And one of the things they do is they vacate the WCW title, and they have this gigantic tournament. It's like a 64-person tournament. I say person because I think Medusa was in it. And the finals winds up being Bret Hart and Chris Benoit in Canada. Bret Hart wins. And that's his WCW title run.
Speaking of Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, there's a promo right now they just released on Instagram for NXT because CM Punk is there tonight. and he's going to be a special guest referee. So CM Punk is standing in front of Triple H wearing bike shorts, little tiny black bike shorts, and a referee shirt and a black cowboy hat. And Triple H essentially says, "There's no way I'm letting you go out there like that."
Well, we're gonna let one guy go out like that.
And then Sean comes in and takes his cap. I didn't listen to what he said, but Sean takes his cowboy hat back off of.
That's
hilarious.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So the big match when Bret is the champion, he wins the title in November. In December, he wrestles Goldberg at Starrcade, and this is the match. Excuse me, Bill Goldberg. This is the match where that kick finds its mark a little too much, and eventually leads to that career-ending concussion. But the whole thing they were setting up with that is, and it didn't last very long because of the injury to Bret. And Bret still wrestled after this for a little bit. Like, I forget, like the screw. I think they did a rehash of the screw job where like Roddy Piper was the ref and he screws. It was very confusing because it was Vince Russo. Like Roddy Piper. Oh, you still with me? There we go.
Yep, it worked.
Roddy Piper screws Goldberg, and the whole thing leads to they're basically redoing the NWO. This is the silver and black NWO instead of black and white. It's black and silver, and it's like Bret Hart, Jeff Jarrett, and I think like the Harris brothers or something. I don't remember exactly. It was bad. It was bad. But this was Vince Russo's big idea to reboot the NWO. But it became very clear, like a few weeks later, like Bret's in a bad way. Like this concussion is serious, and he's probably got to retire. And WCW is such a mess anyway. So that's really the end of Bret Hart's in-ring career. He doesn't really come back to WCW. He did a guest spot where it was when Lance Storm was like the head of the Canadian faction, and they were teasing like he was going to have a match with Mike Awesome and Bret was going to be the referee, but it wound up being, here he is again, Jacques Rougeau. And then Bret came out at the end and kind of symbolically like passed the torch to Lance Storm as like the Canadian hero. But that's really kind of the end for Bret. I remember this is around the time he does like a stage production of Aladdin where he plays the genie. It's like Bret Hart with like no shirt and a vest and genie pants. It's
not blue, unfortunately.
No, not blue.
Could you imagine?
That would be amazing. So it's not until Bret kind of disappears in the public eye, unfortunately. A few years after this, he's riding his bike and he has a stroke. Literally has a stroke while he's riding his bike, and he has to fight his way back to health. It took a whole lot out of him, and after this is when he finally starts to mend fences a little bit with the WWF. He winds up accepting an invitation. I believe it's 2005 to go in the Hall of Fame, or 2006 it might have been. Because 2005 was Hogan. So
he has a sit down with Shawn Michaels and Jim Ross.
Yep, they do the Bret Hart DVD. They do all these other things, and that seems like it's it for a while. He would come around every now and then until we get to WrestleMania. I guess it would have been WrestleMania 27, which is ironically the night Shawn is going to retire because he's going to put his career on the line against the Undertaker, streak versus career. That is also the night that Bret Hart comes back. Because I think this was 2010. It might have been 2011. Yeah, 2011, I believe it was. And literally, it's there's this it's the first Monday in January, and TNA is going to be on Monday night. TNA, and they bring in Ric Flair, they bring in Hulk Hogan, they bring in all these other people for TNA because it's going head to head with Raw, and it did a pretty good rating. Raw did a monster rating that night, and it was Bret Hart coming back to confront Shawn Michaels in the ring. And a long story short, it leads to Bret Hart and Vince McMahon in the match at WrestleMania 27, where it isn't really a match. It's just like Bret beating the shit out of Vince with a chair for 10 minutes, which was probably very cathartic for him. And he would come in here and there. He was the U.S. champion for a minute. He worked a few house shows. He was in the main event of SummerSlam as part of Team WWE against Team Nexus. But by and large, that was kind of the end of Bret's
one of my favorite moments with him and Shawn when they buried the hatch.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
I wanted to hear how the return
that was essentially it.
But that was it.
Yeah, he's like a on-screen. He's not wrestling. He's just kind of there. Yeah,
he would kind of wrestle, but not really because of the stroke. They didn't want to do too much with him.
Yeah, but when him and Shawn finally meet in the ring for the first time, and Shawn's back, and he's Christian Shawn, he's not the same Shawn, depending on who you ask. There's that. So Shawn had that amazing where he'd stand sideways and he could just throw a super kick at anywhere. And there's that moment where you're like, oh, is Shawn gonna kick him? And he takes that step and then lunges in and then just hugs him. And I was like, that's good. That was good.
Yeah, that's a good touch.
Because Shawn can throw that kick. Like, that was the best part about that super kick is it wasn't overused, but when he landed it, it looked amazing. Like it was, yeah. But no, that was good stuff. Well, then there's another some other Bret stuff at another Hall of Fame inductee. He's attacked by a fan.
Yeah, when he was going in as a member of the Hart Foundation. Bret is one of those very few people that's a 2-time Hall of Famer, as is Shawn, because DX went in. Yep. So they are 2-time Hall of Famers, and when they're doing the induction for the Hart Foundation, a fan just rushes in the ring and tackles Bret. And
do you think the Hart Foundation is a nod without saying it's a nod, saying, well, that's kind of Owen's spot too, because it is Hart Foundation?
Yeah. Well, that's weird because there's the Hart Foundation, the team.
Yeah.
Bret, which is Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, and then there's the Hart Foundation, the faction / stable, whatever you want to call it.
It's always the faction stable for me,
which is Bret, Owen, Pillman, Bulldog.
I think they said the tag team just because legally they don't know if they could use everybody else.
Yeah,
but
no,
we all know what that meant.
Yeah, and they've made it clear that they want to put Owen in the Hall of Fame, but Martha Hart does not want them to do it, and they won't do it against her wishes.
Yeah. Also, Bret made an appearance at AEW. I believe he introduced the very first time the title was unveiled.
He did. It was at the first. It was at what was their first pay-per-view? Double or Nothing. Yeah, where they unveiled the AEW title. I think he did like a promo thing with MJF. Yeah, there you go.
So he's popped in here and there. He
was just at Raw like a couple weeks ago.
He was at Raw with Gunther. He also does a lot of conventions. I believe he's still doing his art. But he's in the wrestling limelight, but he's not. He's just kind of telling
he makes it into a lot of those documentaries.
He loves doing documentaries. If Bret has a way to go and talk about wrestling, he'll sign up. He'll be there.
He's a guy that's not afraid to pull punches, especially if he doesn't like somebody. Like he's not afraid to pull punches on Goldberg, on Bischoff, on Vince. So yeah, there is definitely he does the talking head thing very well. He's a softer Jim Cornette. He's a much softer Jim Cornette.
But he also has a lot. I mean, Jim Cornette sometimes doesn't have a leg to stand on because he was never a worker. He was.
I wouldn't say that.
He's not Bret Hart.
Fine, but walk that back. He's the Bret Hart of managers, you could say.
Agreed. Sure.
Jim Cornette has a very much. I'm not saying you have to agree with the guy, but he is at worst the third best manager of all time.
Agreed. And he's a historian. He knows the history of wrestling better than anyone. He's obsessed with professional wrestling. Just unfortunately, he didn't like change a lot. And still doesn't.
True.
But when you look at Bret as a whole, and I'm not even going to put Shawn in this, wrestling goes two ways after Bret and Shawn. They introduce those smaller guys. They introduce not the muscle bound steroid guys, and Shawn took it one direction. We'll talk about on the Shawn episode, but Bret kept it based very much in reality. He kept that gritty old school style of wrestling, but also added that flavor of new school. Yeah. And if you look at a lot of wrestlers today, everyone respects both guys, but there's clearly people who are saying I'm a Shawn guy and I'm a Bret guy, and a lot of people say I'm influenced by Bret, and Bret's influence is still very much there. 100%. Your Danielsons, your FTRs, like that really old school things have to make sense style wrestler all come from those guys, even though Danielson is trained by Shawn Michaels.
He was trained at the Shawn Michaels wrestling. He was trained by Shawn Michaels like Chris Jericho was trained by the Hearts.
Very, very true.
He was trained by Rudy Boy Gonzalez.
Yeah, like CM Punk, diehard Bret guy. Even though I think as a character, I think he's more Shawn, but that's just me.
But he had some issues with Shawn when he was 100% through WWF. Yeah, and it seems like they've all buried the hatchet now, and everybody's.
They're doing promo. They just did a promo tonight together. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things that Bret we thought would never return to the WWE, and time heals all wounds, and anything's possible. If Bret can walk in the door,
money helps too. Money helps as
well. But yeah, the guy is a legend. Just to kind of go through some stuff here. He during 1974, the city of Calgary, he was an amateur wrestling champion, collegiate wrestling at Mount Royal Collegiate Champion 1977, National Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2006, the Cauliflower Alley Club, or the Iron Mike Award 2008, Canadian Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame 2021 and individually, and 2022 is the Hart Foundation, Canadian Wrestling Hall of Fame individually and with the Hart Foundation, the George Treos Luthez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame class 2006, International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame 2003, the Prairie Wrestling Alliance Hall of Fame 2010, Pro Wrestling Illustrated Comeback of the Year 97, Feud of the Year 93 with Jay Lawler, 94 with Owen, Match of the Year 92 with British Bulldog, Match of the Year 96 with Shawn Michaels, 97 with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Most Hated Wrestler 97, Most Inspirational Wrestler 94, the Stan Wesley Award in 2003, ranked number 1 of the 500 single wrestlers in PWI in 93 and 94, ranked number 4 for PWI 500 in 2003, 37 in top tag teams of 100 top tag teams in 2003. I believe it all time. Yeah. Quebec Wrestling Hall of Fame 2017. Stampede Wrestling 5 times tag team champions with Keith Hart and Leo Burke. No relation.
No relation.
Yeah. Stampede British Commonwealth Midweight Champion 3 times. Stampede North American Champion 6 times. Stampede Wrestling Hall of Fame. WCW Champion 2 times. US Champion 4 times. WCW Tag Team Champion 1 time with that great tag team partner. Great chemistry those guys had with Bill Goldberg. 5th Crown Champion. Universal Wrestling Promotions. He was a 1-time tag team champion with Smith Hart. And then the WWE, 5-time WWE champion, the WWE United States champion 1 time, Intercontinental twice, tag team twice, King of the Ring 91 and 93, Royal Rumble 94, Middle East Cup 96, WWE Hall of Fame 2 times. We said individually in 2006 and 2009 as a member of the Hart Foundation, WWE Superstar of the Year 93. 2nd Triple Crown Champion 2 times, Slammy Awards. He has 5 of those. And then just the list goes on and on. He did also have a mask gimmick 1 time, I believe. They said, I'm sorry, hold on. That's something completely different. I apologize. But
by the way, one of the original ideas when he was coming to WWF was Cowboy Bret Hart.
Cowboy Bret Hart, yeah.
Because Calgary is all about the rodeo. Like that Saddle Dome is usually a rodeo in Calgary. And there's another great match in 1997, Canadian Stampede. You want to see heat? You want to see like a crowd, like a rabid crowd in your house, Canadian Stampede. First of all, it's an amazing show because there's a great match with Taka Michinoku and the Great Sasuke in it too. But that 10-man tag, it's the Hart Foundation against Steve Austin, Goldust, Ken Shamrock, and the LOD. Steve Austin they hate him. They hate him.
Is that when Owen gets hit off the side and hits the guardrail and he gets eliminated from the match because he's like too injured? He has to go to the back. What Hart Foundation match was that?
That might be it. I'm not sure. That might be it.
Yeah,
because I think that's what they. Yeah, I really want to watch that match now. That match is so good. It's so good.
We talked about a bunch. There's so many good Bret matches to go back and check out. There's really not a stinker. I mean, there's maybe a few, but there's not many.
I always thought him and Jerry Lawler were not the promos, not the build up, but when they actually got in the ring, I always thought it was 2 great tastes that don't taste great together.
Yeah. Is there any accolades to Bret? I can't personally think of any. Is there any first for Bret, like the first time to do something in pro wrestling? Like he's the first to introduce something or the first in a match type or anything like that?
Well, the ladder match was pretty. I don't know if it was invented by him and Dynamite Kid, but they were the first ones to really do it noticeably. And then he had the first ladder match in WWF before Shawn and Razor. Shawn and Bret had one. Guess where you can find it? Coliseum Video, because he's Mr. Coliseum.
Him and Shawn did have a ladder match first. Yeah.
I don't know if he was the first Canadian WWF champion. I know he's not the first, obviously, clearly not the first one from another country because Bruno Sammartino's from Italy. But I'm trying to think, and the Iron Sheik's from Iran, and Andres from France.
Was the first one to get a hockey team named after him.
Yes.
That's got to be pretty big.
He's the first wrestler to get a Simpsons character, which, by the way, I did pull up. Here's John Cena as a Simpson.
That is Dave Meltzer. That is 100% Dave Meltzer.
It could literally be anybody. That could be Vince. Like that sense that like you look at that you're like, I have no. That could be anybody, and it's as a Simpson. But
why does it look like it has a lazy eye though?
Who knows? How dare you if you're making a Sean joke? Anyway,
I wasn't. Oh, maybe it's Sean, just with shorter hair. Maybe
Sean
it's got a rat tail on the back.
And
Sean
then there's
like that.
And there's Bret Hart as a Simpson. Perfect.
Yeah. He bought Mr. Burns' mansion.
Yeah.
And one of the funniest things that ever happened on Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez's show, maybe the funniest thing ever, they would do like a Q&A segment, and they must not have known about that because whatever happened to the house, the mansion that Bret Hart bought from Montgomery Burns in Springfield? And Meltzer addresses the question like it's a shoot. He's like, so it's something Calgary. I think he lived in Hawaii for a little bit, and he never bought a mansion in Springfield. Like, it's hilarious.
Yeah. But all right, well, that'll do it for Tornado Tag this week. Bret Hart, we went really long on this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys are enjoying the new format, we will be done before NXT in the future. I promise we'll lead in. This one went a little long. We haven't done it in a while. We get excited talking. We had that third mouth to the table, and it goes a little longer.
Right. I did so much.
Lily, you talk too
here.
damn much. No, okay.
So on that note, because you guys talk so much, I said no slandering, and you did really well for 2 hours of not slandering. But I feel like there's still enough here that I'm going to definitely be able to make some propaganda videos for whenever we actually have a great debate.
We
I got some.
We didn't even get started on never let
He was in Lonesome Dove.
Yeah.
He was in Lonesome Dove.
The series.
I've got the smear campaign ready to go. That's all I'm saying.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just need the Shawn Michaels stuff to get.
Bret's gonna be slandered for making bad outside wrestling things. Sean's gonna get slandered for making bad wrestling decisions. Yeah.
Sean's
never.
I feel like Sean's gonna be slandered for a lot.
Never let Shawn Michaels near your. Never let him near your salads. Never let him near your sandwiches.
Listen, Shawn Michaels' first act is not going to be a good moment for Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels cleans up in his second and third act.
we talked about the cat spatula. That's kind of what Shawn Michaels did to Sonny's salad. That's kind of what Shawn Michaels did to Mark Henry's sandwich. Yeah.
No smear campaign yet.
No smear.
I've got an arsenal.
I'll be calling you up in a week and a half so that I can have some little. I'm gonna throw in some little clips here and there.
We can talk about the original plane ride from hell in the 80s.
Yep. But real quick, let's get out of here with this one. If you guys want to support myself, and Lily, we won't be at this show, but if you are in the area, head over to the Falcon's Nest in October for their show, October 19th, Bateman's Revenge. Time to dig deep. First time that myself and Lily are on a poster. Look at our logos, even though somehow Mommy's always on top. I don't get that. But yeah, so go check out that show. Maybe I had a little influence on that booking decision when it comes to that card. I'm pretty excited how it turns out.
Maybe the booking.
Very cool.
Booking committee.
Anyway, but yeah, very, very happy how this turns out. I can't wait to. I will still be on commentary, but it will be done in post. But I will be back for New Era in October, because that day in October I will be
in November.
October.
In October,
I'll be back in November,
right,
but that day in October I will be at Smash Yard again doing commentary with Toddy Tondera. I should probably learn how to say that last name properly. Very excited. Huh?
Toddy
Tondera.
Tondera. I'm very excited to work with them. BP you got to work with them before already, right?
I worked with Toddy. Yeah, Toddy is great.
You think we're going to be good chemistry?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm pumped. But this doesn't happen very often, but I'm sponsored by not one, but 3 sponsors going into this show. Probably a independent wrestling first, and I'm not done. I want more. But huge thank you to Raz, the Addictively Speaking podcast, and Witchcrafts by Lily, all for sponsoring me on that show. I really, really want to show that value and maybe set a charge that wrestlers can go out there and make a couple extra bucks for themselves on shows.
The announce table can look like a NASCAR.
I want it to go up to my chin is the goal. You know what I mean? I think all wrestlers should work for that. If you want some extra money in your envelope, like look for sponsors, look for a small business who can possibly throw you $20 a show and
$20 and give you a headband to wear, my guy.
You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get it going. Let's make some money in this industry. Let's get local businesses to support it and promote it, and let's all work together. So yeah, hopefully that trend starts going. But t-shirts will be available, like we said earlier. The Hitman Burke, the Hitman Foundation, the Showstopper ABJ, the Showstopper Click, and the Freshly Squeezed Lily 2024 will all be available. This one I'm not sure if I'm going to post because I feel like I
can take that off.
That is.
Let me I'm just doing me.
Yeah, I think that
I mirrored it.
Did you?
There's nothing there that's like.
I didn't know if that's the actual thumb art that they did, but it might be tweaked enough.
It's similar, but I mirrored it and then I made it thicker and then I added that.
We'll try it. We'll see what happens.
What's the worst that could happen?
They'll just tell us to take it down.
Right. They're going to tell us to take it down, and then it'll just say whatever 24.
Yeah. BP, what do you got to plug? I don't have any graphics, unfortunately.
I'll get them over for you next week because not this Saturday, but the Saturday after, PPW is back at the Slatington Expo Center. Thriller.
Oh, yeah,
We're gonna have a
Unfortunately,
fun
won't be able to
time.
make that one. Do you have to get a
That's
ride
fine.
from somebody? I have to go.
Yeah.
I want to go see my little cousin's
Right on.
Band
That's
band
great.
recital. Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna have
Competition.
Facade and VSK for the PPW heavyweight title. We're gonna have what else do we have going on that I
If
should know?
Rembrandt goes to cash in, trip him because I want to
Oh
be
my
there live
gosh,
when he
yeah,
does it.
he
Yeah.
can't. He's not allowed to
Yeah.
yet.
I am not going to stand in that gentleman's way if he wants to cash in that golden ticket
Rembrandt, if you're
briefcase.
listening, if you cash in October, I'll kill you.
He will.
I will Vince McMahon your car. It'll blow up. I'm telling you right now.
That poor guy has enough issues with his car.
Yeah.
Then we have Nahir Robles is making her PPW debut against Sammy Chaos. We're going to have Dio Bando and Jermaine Marbury. That's going to be a lot of fun. Sugar Dan, he's an ABJ podcast veteran. Sugar Dan Stofko. He's going to be challenging for the No Limits title. He very fairly has pointed out he was supposed to have a one-on-one shot against Rembrandt, the former champion. Trace Parker and Tom Mitchell, a tag team, got inserted into that match. And Trace Parker basically was the catalyst there in helping his tag team partner very selflessly, helping his tag team partner get over that hump and win that No Limits title.
What a chump. Trace, you're a chump. You get that title when you get a chance. You don't just hand it over. You chump. Anyway.
But that's what we have going on so far. It's going to be a fun show. Always a fun time at the Slatington Expo Center. You can enjoy some funk beer, enjoy some pro wrestling, and who knows, maybe Rembrandt's going to cash in that gold ticket.
He better not.
Oh my gosh, we're not even going to see him at the New Era show.
Yeah, I
either.
won't.
Yeah, we're missing him at all of his October bookings.
Maybe you just spoiled something there, by the way. Just saying.
Oops.
Yeah, Booker of the Year over here.
I'm pretending I don't know when he's going to cash in. Look.
Yeah.
You got like what? 2 people listening? No, I'm just kidding.
You gotta suspend some disbelief here.
Yeah, and also if you guys want, there is a subscription for the channel. You join. There's a $1 tier. There's a $2 tier. If you're in there, if you're here live and you're watching and you're a tiered member, throw up the titles. We have the title belt as an emoji. Put it in the chat. Let people know you're a member. Huge thank you to our members. We just got a couple more. I think we're at 9 members total, so we could hit that 10 or 20. That'd be super cool. But if you get the $4.99, the champs tier, that gets you early access to all of our content before it drops. And I'm telling you right now, there's enough content to take you into next year. You're gonna see episodes of 5 Questions with ABJ and question and interviews that won't be dropping until December on that right now. So if you guys want to help out, it really helps the channel. It helps pay a lot of the bills.
I know that we're going on forever here, but I'm just making sure
You're good.
that this is legit. I believe we may have. Hang on one second.
It's not. I don't think that's real.
It's not
The
real.
thing that-
Oh, never mind.
I don't. The things that were written
never.
that do not seem
Yeah,
real.
never mind.
In our
Never mind.
chat?
Never mind.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
read too
never-
far
never
ahead.
mind.
I'm like, no. This is definitely a meme. This is a meme. This is a meme. Don't.
Yeah.
think it-
This is not true. Yeah, this is not. Yeah, never mind. End
So
the show.
back to our outro.
Yeah. So if you guys want, let's hit up the memberships, join, and actually we'll do something real quick before we cut out of here. BP. Let's give away a couple memberships. We're gonna give some memberships. We're gonna do it right now. They're hitting the chat as we speak. 5 free memberships have been given out. C. Henry, Dan Stofko is a member of the AB.
Dan!
Sugar Dan, Trippy Shades, Blue Smoke, and the Looney Tunes Critic all were gifted memberships for the channel. So thank you guys all for the brand new gifted memberships that are out there. Join and see all that early content. That $5 is like buy one of us a beer at least every month. I did take off the $100 tier. I took all of that off. I feel like $1, $5, and $25 is good enough. And if you want to go more, you can just always do super chats or donations in the chat below. Or if you check out my my link tree, I do have my PayPal, Venmo, and you could donate to the channel that way as well. It does help out a lot. Editing programs take a lot. We're paying equipment bills. Like we do a lot to enhance the quality of this equipment. Once I get my cameras down, I want to start helping BP get some lighting and cameras over there so he doesn't like a hostage victim. But we're doing a lot of cool things. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. I know we went long. Sometimes people like the long ones here. Hey, that's what she said. But that'll do it for Tornado Tech Podcast. We'll see you next week for our Shawn Michaels episode. But for now, we will see you next time, you stinking hyenas.
Don't lose your smile.
How dare you?